Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. It was early July, 1960, just a few days after the 4th of July holiday. I was busier than ever. Erica and I were preparing to get married in mid-August. I was pushing myself hard to grow my firewood delivery business while still handling much of the driving myself. From the very beginning of working together, Cousin Brady and I had been trying to establish new guidelines to manage the changes in our relationship now that business was involved alongside family ties. We both recognized that things needed to shift to accommodate this new dynamic. As the business started to thrive, Brady and Teresa began to question whether I was taking advantage of them. I didn't see it that way. I truly believed my efforts were helping them as much as, if not more than, helping me. When we were kids, Brady had always dominated me, largely due to his age and greater physical strength. He could usually get his way through force or intimidation. But now that I was fully grown, I no longer felt obligated to yield to him. My new attitude was starting to concern Brady, especially regarding how others might perceive our evolving working relationship. On top of that, Brady was uneasy about our separate financial positions. My sales were expanding, and he was well aware of how much I was earning on each cord of firewood delivered. My business was straightforward and required little upfront investment. My money was tied up only as long as it took to make deliveries and receive payment. Before I began purchasing wood in bulk from Brady, much of his firewood had just been sitting idle, not contributing to his profits for months or even years. With his constant logging operation overhead, this had caused him problems in the past. While he didn't like relying on me for income, we were family, and my business was bringing in much-needed revenue. I realized early on that our arrangement wouldn't work if Brady continued to dominate our business dealings. We were already clashing over the fact that I was making significant profits from what Brady viewed as his hard work. From Brady's perspective, all I did was take his wood and sell it to eager buyers, forgetting that selling had always been the weakest part of his business. He disliked sales and had never considered hiring someone for that role. Now that I had opened accounts and was actively selling, he felt it was unfair for me to earn more per sale than he did. He believed the hard work of harvesting and preparing the firewood was his alone. Both of us could see that his logging operation had improved significantly thanks to my efforts creating steady demand for the hardwood. Having a reliable and profitable outlet helped him bid more competitively on new logging and lot clearing contracts. I was buying all the firewood he could produce. Turning his backlog of wood into cash gave Brady the capital to compete more aggressively with other small logging crews. He could place better bids, confident he could quickly recover expenses by selling the newly harvested wood. Although I was now larger and heavier than Brady by at least 40 pounds, he still saw me as his younger cousin, someone he had physically dominated for years. He was unwilling to give up what he considered his rightful role controlling and having final say over everything in my new business. To make things more complicated, Teresa believed I was exploiting Brady in the wood buying arrangement. She argued that Brady worked much harder than I did and deserved most, if not all, of the profits. Neither of them thought my idea to capitalize on the wood should earn me the kind of money I was starting to make. If I'd been struggling, barely making enough to keep my trucks running or to pay my cousin, Lenny, they wouldn't have tried to pull what they were now in the process of pulling. I was already paying him more for his wood than his current asking price for the product. He'd sell the same wood, more cheaply, to a total stranger, anyone who might happen to drive by his farm and see the sign that he had posted that announced he had cut firewood for sale. Even paying him more than he was asking for the wood, I was doing very well for myself. I certainly wasn't taking advantage of Brady, though. I had already had several other logging operators offer me the same kind of wood I was buying from Brady, and for a lot less money than I was paying for it now. Out of a sense of family loyalty, though, I continued to only buy my wood from Brady. For the past month or more, most mornings when I'd come out to Brady's farm to pick up the wood for that day's delivery, Brady would either do or say something to try to let me know that he was still the one who was in charge. I didn't like having to deal with anyone's belligerent attitude, although I admit this was especially true if it was Brady. To my way of thinking, my business idea had probably saved Brady from having his logging operation go under. He should be happy that we'd found a way for him to stay in business and keep his farm. I'd borrowed money from my parents to prepay him for the first loads of what I was buying. Without that advance from me, he told me he hadn't known how he was going to get his family through the winter season. He was worried about losing his farm. In the very beginning, before he knew that my idea would be so successful, he and Teresa were both expressing their gratitude for my assistance. In a matter of a few short months, I'd gone from being their rescuer to being an exploiter. Maybe it was human nature to want to maintain relationships where you're the person on top. Now that things were going well for me, and both of us were managing to earn much more than our expenses, Brady was trying to change my firewood delivery business into our firewood delivery business. He had also made it very clear that he was definitely expecting to be the senior partner in any restructured business agreement we might, eventually, strike. Jackson, I've been talking about things with Teresa, and we both think we might need to hire ourselves another firewood delivery guy. Not to squeeze you or cut you out of anything, just to keep us from having all our eggs in one basket, like what we're doing now with having just you. I could tell that Brady had rehearsed this opening salvo of his. This was a much more confrontational approach than any he'd attempted before. I already knew he was trying to force me to give him half of the firewood sales profits I was earning. How's that supposed to work for me, Brady? I'm already buying everything you can cut. Does this mean you don't care if I go out and make my own deals with other logging outfits? I think Mr. Gracia still has more wood than he can dispose of over at his place. I know he was asking my old man why I never came to see him after I started selling wood around this area. I guess you could do that, Jackson. That would be up to you. You know he cheated me, right? How would it look if you started doing business with a guy who went out and screwed over someone in your own family? You think Uncle John would think it was all right for you to go and do something like that? Brady was right about that. When my father had told me that Mr. Gracia had approached him, he'd also told me what he'd told Mr. Gracia in reply. You've got some nerve even talking to me after what you did to Brady Blackwell. Get away from me, you creep, before I forget that you used to be someone I liked and respected. My dad was like that. Family loyalty meant everything to him. If someone hurt anyone in the family, he was now an enemy. It was very clear-cut and simple with him. I wouldn't want to try to explain to him why I was doing business with anyone who'd hurt Brady. Brady knew this and wasn't above using that against me either. Maybe not him then. I know lots of other small logging crews though. I don't think I'd have any problem buying as much firewood as I needed, not if I drove around and really went looking for it. I would probably get it for a lot less than what I'm paying you. Don't you go and push this idea of yours so far that you won't leave me any other choice but to start doing business with your competition. I guess that's it then, Jackson. I'll keep on supplying you until the end of the month. After that, you can go try to make your own deal somewhere else. Don't try coming back to me later, after you find out you've gotten yourself in a bind. You mean me coming around like you did over at my house before, when you managed to get my father to go to bat for you and your crew about getting some work out at the sub base? You can't have it both ways, Brady. If you want us to stop helping each other, I'm all right with that, but don't try to put me out of business just because you're jealous of what I've been building on my own. When I left Brady's farm that day, my thoughts were not very optimistic. I was sure that most of the family would side with Brady and Teresa. Most of them had no idea how much my creating a market for Brady's wood was helping Brady and Teresa to succeed with their own business. To them, I was just a young kid, fresh out of school, who'd somehow lucked into creating his own job, and, in the process, had been using Brady's established business as my springboard for doing so. As a general rule, all our family members worked for wages. Brady, having a business of his own, was a source of family pride. To them, it was like I'd somehow attached myself to Brady's business. If I went out now and started buying my wood from anywhere else, to them it would seem like I was turning around and taking advantage of Brady after he'd been the one who'd given me my start in the first place. It was funny in a way that the only relatives who understood how much what I was doing was helping Brady's business were the three of us. I knew that Brady and Teresa weren't book smart, but they were shrewd in lots of other ways, especially Teresa. I was sure the reason they were doing this was as much about them seeking to retain some semblance of control over their own business as it was about them trying to co-opt mine. They could both see how dependent on my future success they were starting to become. Brady's ego had taken a pretty big hit when it first became apparent that my sales were quickly pulling his bacon out of the fire. Rather than enjoying the fact that he now had a lot more money coming in than he'd ever had before, Brady was worried that he'd somehow be seen, in the family, as being inferior, business-wise, to me. He'd had all of that he wanted with his brother, Dale, back when he was still a kid. He didn't want to be on the unfavorable end of any future comparisons with me. It didn't matter to them that I'd never tried to promote myself as being superior to Brady in any way. That didn't mean I was going to allow either of them to deal with me as anything less than an equal, though. I'd been very lucky to stumble across an idea that looked like it would turn into a permanent business. I was already making more money than I'd ever anticipated making. In addition, the future prospects for my business were looking even more positive. At least they had been, before Brady's little bombshell landed on me that morning. I spent the entire day trying to think of some way out of this dilemma I was now facing. Everything I managed to think of had, as a side consequence, the very real prospect of injuring Brady's business. I knew I had to avoid even the appearance of having done that to Brady. When I finished my deliveries, I headed back to Groton. On most days I would have driven back to Brady's farm, and waited to make sure that Lenny hadn't experienced any problems. Brady had already been given schedules for the deliveries we'd each be making for the remainder of that week. When I got back home, my father was pacing back and forth from the kitchen to the living room. He had a drink in his hand, whiskey and water, and was busy making all his opinions known to my mother. The gist of which was that I'd better take immediate care of this problem with Brady, or else he'd know the goddamn reason why I hadn't. I hadn't even gotten the door closed, coming into the house, before he started to let me have it. Yutch, goddamn it. Why can't you ever be content to just feed at the trough with all the rest of us? Why is it that you have to stir up things instead of trying to make them work? Does this have something to do with Brady attempting to horn in on my firewood business? Your business? What the hell do you know about running a small logging operation? Nothing, that's what. All you've done is get Brady to let you go out and sell his wood for him. You can't walk into another man's business and start telling him how much of his money you're going to be keeping. If it wasn't for Brady, you wouldn't even have any firewood to run all around New England selling. Where's your loyalty, Yutch? One thing my father had always been famous for was his ability to go off half-cocked, usually with little or no factual information to go by. In spite of not having any grasp of what the problem really was, he'd always felt more than qualified to make a ruling as to what was right and proper for the rest of us to do. I knew he had no real understanding about what it was I had actually been doing for Brady. In spite of this ignorance on his part, he'd already decided that I was the one who was guilty of ruining what he had thought of as a good thing. Brady was doing well now, and so was I. If anything was beginning to put that in danger, the way my father looked at things, it must be my fault, because I was the newest person to be involved in Brady's business. It didn't seem to matter to my father that it had been Brady, hat in hand, who had come to him, a short while ago, asking for his help in keeping his logging crew together because he'd run out of money to bid on any new logging work. Other than his vehicles and his logging equipment, Brady's only business assets were the 500 or 600 cords of wood that were sitting stacked up all around his farm, passively waiting for someone to come by and take them off Brady's hands. I had been the one to discover a way to turn a huge portion of that wood into money. Money that Brady had desperately needed to see his family through another winter. In the beginning, all Brady and Teresa were concerned about was seeing their short-term financial prospects brightening. Now that the firewood business was growing into something really substantial, they were beginning to worry about how much money I was making for what they saw as the minimal effort I was putting in. Now that my parents were becoming involved, I knew Brady wasn't just trying to cut himself in for a little bigger profit margin on the wood he was selling me. He intended to either become my partner or else drive me away from the firewood business altogether. I knew he might succeed in doing the latter too, because I'd need to go against my family's wishes if I tried to strike out on my own and secure a non-family source of firewood to sell. I didn't think I'd be able to make myself do that. My business was important to me, but my family and my place in the family were far more important. I thought of my father as the head of our family, and I wouldn't go up against him over this. Brady didn't have the first idea about how to go about turning all that wood he'd collected back into money. He was selling about 6 cords a month from his signs out on the road. It was my idea to take the wood out to places that didn't have so many free-standing clusters of hardwoods. I don't need Brady's wood to keep on selling firewood in the big towns and some of the cities. Brady isn't in the business of selling firewood, not really. I sell 5 or 6 times as much wood in one day as he's been selling on his own in a month. I don't need Brady or his wood to stay in business. If anything, Brady needs me a lot more than I need him. You're starting to get too damn big for your britches, Yutch. You think you know it all. Well, you don't know as much as you think you do. I'm not going to have you doing anything to hurt your cousin. You hear me? Nothing. You don't want to sell his wood? Fine, but you aren't going to go out and compete with him in his own business. I just won't have it. What about Lenny then? Are you going to find him another job that he can handle? I can sell my trucks pretty easily. I can go enroll in school in the fall too. Erica and I will have to postpone getting married too, because I'm not getting married when I don't have an income. I'm telling you right now though, if I do this, not only am I losing out on a good income, but Brady and Teresa are going to have a real tough time making a go of things by themselves. Brady only knows one part of his business. That was how he got in so much trouble before. Brady's been doing this for a good long while, without any help from you. What makes you think he can't make it on his own without you? It costs money to harvest trees, Dad. You make your money back by selling the wood. These stands around here are too small. Most of them aren't worthwhile for a big outfit to come in and harvest. These little crews, like Brady's, they can get in for a cheap bid, but these small stands of trees don't usually have enough product to make a big enough harvest to interest the people who buy large amounts of timber. Firewood is usually the best use they can put their product to around here. The problem is, in this part of the state, too many people have access to their own small stands of wood. They don't buy their firewood, they chop it down and make their own, just like Brady does. only in much smaller amounts. Firewood prices in this part of Connecticut are lower than almost anywhere else. Supply and demand. That's why I take the wood and move it over to where most people don't have the time to do it, or access to trees for cutting their own firewood. People from the city, they don't mind paying money for the extra convenience. Even then, I don't sell to the people who burn the wood. I sell to the people who sell it to those people. You don't think Brady can do what you do? I heard the doubt my father now was having. Brady had never impressed any of us with his business skills before. He impressed us with his work habits and with his determined perseverance. Brady was very good at solving problems that required sheer brute force and a willingness to expend great sums of energy to get things done. I think we both know that Brady isn't very comfortable with selling. He's not much of a talker. He could probably find someone to handle the wood sales for him, but I doubt anyone would do a better job than I do, especially if he tries to keep all the profits for himself. There's a strong chance he won't be able to keep the business as profitable as it is now. Brady doesn't seem worried about replacing you, Yutch. That's a big reason I'm trying to address this early, before things get to a point where it can't be resolved between you two. Since you're planning to set up your own place, this isn't the time to be stubborn. Brady says he'll let you keep working for him, but as part of his business, not as an independent operation like you want. I'll pass on that, Pop. Tell Brady I'm going to sell my trucks. If he wants to buy them, I'll take $1,200 for the both of them. I'll go ahead and keep things going until the end of the month, but after that, I'm done. How certain are you that Brady won't be able to make a go of this on his own, Yutch? If you do what you're saying now, and he does manage to keep things going, you're the one who gets left out in the cold. You know that much, right? I'm not positive he won't make it, but I don't see him being able to keep up the sales like I did. And if he does, I'm betting he won't be able to make any more than he's already making right now. My father nodded. He seemed pretty satisfied with my refusal to give in to Brady. I wasn't sure whether he believed what I was predicting or not. Maybe he just wanted to prevent the two of us from having a long, drawn-out fight that would polarize the family. It didn't matter to me anymore anyway. I'd felt pretty lucky to have stumbled across the idea in the first place. I'd already made quite a bit of money. If Brady bought my trucks at my asking price, I'd have enough to see me through at least the first 2 years of college. After 2 years, we'd all know whether Brady and Teresa were right, or if I was. I went to my room and started trying to figure out a budget for going to college. I wasn't seeing Erica until the next evening. I'd have to figure out some way to tell her that our wedding plans would have to be put on hold. Brady was barely speaking to me when I went over to the farm to pick up my load the next morning. I knew he'd gotten a phone call from my father the night before. I had 2 separate deliveries scheduled for that day, mine, up to New Haven, and then Lenny and me both taking 2 loads over to Providence, later that afternoon. I was hoping to get back to the farm before 1 o'clock that afternoon. I was just getting ready to leave after I got loaded up when Teresa came out of the house and over to my truck. Jackson, you've got Brady all upset now. Why do you have to be so stubborn about this? Look, Terry, I'm not the one trying to make changes. You guys are. I just hope this doesn't end up putting you and Brady out of business in addition to it already costing me my business. I don't see Brady being able to manage the sales side of things. It would be a terrible thing if this turned out to be a disaster for all of us. You could just give him what he wants. That's what I am doing. He wants it all. Both of you do. This is greed, pure and simple. I thought up a way that made all of us some money, and now you both want the money you're making, plus most of mine. I won't work for Brady, and I know I can't compete against him because he's family. After you guys go broke, if you ever do, then I can come back from school and set this up again, using somebody else to supply the wood for me. Why should you make more than us, Jackson? You do, you know? You don't have our overhead, so most of what you get is pure profit. You know how hard Brady works. He takes most of the risks too. What makes you so special that you should make more than we do? What I do is what makes you guys money, Terry. You both seem to have pretty short memories. I remember Brady working just as hard as he does now, and then him sitting in our kitchen and telling us that he was pretty certain he was going to lose this farm. The only thing that has changed since then was me taking a chance on being able to sell the wood up in the cities. I wasn't sure I could sell any of it, or even if I could, whether I'd make enough to cover my expenses. You and Brady both know your wood isn't the only wood I can sell, and that's why you've brought my father into this. I already know I can sell firewood for a profit. Now, we're going to find out if you and Brady can find someone who can replace me. If you can, then you need to find out if you can do it cheaper than I'm doing it for you now. You better hire someone in the family too, because if you find anyone as good at selling as I am, he'll be smart enough to know he can make a lot more by going off on his own and selling whatever firewood he can get for the least amount of money. You two are just going to end up creating your own competition. I left her standing there beside where my truck had been parked as I put it in gear and drove back out to the road. I knew that Teresa usually didn't let her emotions cloud her judgment. Certainly not as often as Brady did. For Brady, it was more about who was going to be in charge. Teresa was more practical. All I'd done was introduce her to the possibility that this move might backfire on them too, leaving all of us worse off than we were before. I got back in time to reload and head up to Providence, not too long after Lenny had come in and gotten the other truck loaded. Brady still wasn't saying much, but I could see, from his facial expressions, that he was worried about something. I left, believing that my earlier conversation with Teresa might have accomplished something worthwhile. I didn't get back from my afternoon delivery until almost 8 that evening. I called Erica as soon as I got home. We went out for some steamed clams and chowder over by the point. I was working my way up to telling Erica that we were going to have to delay our wedding for a while. It had seemed simpler to do when she wasn't sitting right there in front of me. Baby, I've got some bad news to tell you. We had finished eating, and I wanted to get this over with while we were still out in public. Not that Erica would be inhibited much by this. It looks like Brady and Terry have decided that they don't need me to help them sell firewood anymore. They're hiring someone else to do it, and my family doesn't want me going out and trying to compete with them. I guess I'm going to take some of the money I've been making and go back to school for a while. This means we can't go ahead with the wedding for right now. Nice try, Jackson. You were doing really well, right up to where you got around to that thing about us having to postpone getting married. The invitations have already gone out. We can still get married. My father will help us out if we need him to. Do you think anyone else can do what you did? Aren't they taking a big chance by doing this without knowing if it's even going to work out better for them? We spent another hour talking about my business and about Brady and Teresa. Erica seemed to think like I did, that Brady and Teresa were both discounting how difficult it was going to be for someone else to go out and open up new accounts. It hadn't been that difficult for me, but I'd had my grandfather's help in getting my first big sale. After that, I had enough money coming in to allow me to run around soliciting for new business. I didn't believe I was a great salesman or anything, but I knew I was probably more persistent than most sales types were. I also was pretty good at coming up with reasons why these wholesalers should buy from me. I stressed my delivery dependability and the excellent quality of the firewood we were selling for the relatively low costs that were involved. People hadn't exactly been jumping up and down when they first learned that I'd come around to sell them a truckload of firewood. By the time I took Erica back home, she'd almost convinced me that we could still go ahead with our wedding. I told her I'd give it some thought, even though I was afraid of the idea of being married and unable to support her as well as she was used to being supported by her father. When I'd proposed to her, I'd been confident that my economic prospects were bright. When I got back to the house after seeing Erica home, both my parents were waiting up for me. The first thing my mother wanted to know was whether I'd called off the wedding. We're thinking about it right now. We'll make a final decision on that soon. Erica wants us to go ahead with the wedding. I think we should wait. Your father talked to Brady again tonight. Brady isn't so sure anymore about what he wants to do. He thinks he might be willing to let you come in as a junior partner with him. He might let you have some of the profits from the whole business, not just the firewood sales. The firewood sales are the only thing that produces revenue, Ma. All the rest of it is expenses. According to Teresa, my business already makes more than theirs. Maybe I should let Brady give me his business, and I'll make him a junior partner. Jackson, that isn't helping. You should try your best to reach some kind of an accommodation with them. Teresa said something about you maybe paying them more for the wood you buy. Could you do that? I could, but I'm not going to. This whole thing is about them being greedy, wanting more than they're entitled to. I'm not trying to take anything of theirs. They want to take from me. I already pay Brady more than anyone else does for that firewood. I could have gone out and bought it from somewhere else for less money, but I never did. I don't want anything from Brady that's his, and I'm not going to give him anything that's mine. You're just going to throw it all away then. My father sounded sad and disappointed in me when he said that. You aren't giving me any other choices. You don't want me buying from anyone else, because it would end up hurting Brady. I know I'd make a lot more money if I did do that, but that isn't what I want. I don't know why it's all right with you that Brady is sticking it to me, but I'm not allowed to fight back. When this is over, no matter how it finally turns out, I'm going to have lost a lot. I didn't do anything wrong to deserve that. This is just Teresa and Brady being greedy, and them being jealous of what I've done. We talked some more, but nothing much came of it. They were worried now. I guess they'd both started thinking about the past by now, and had then remembered how things were before I'd gone out and started selling firewood for Brady. They had to believe that what I was warning them about might be a real possibility. Now that they could see that possibility for themselves, all of their earlier, hastily jumped to conclusions weren't quite so clear-cut for them anymore. My parents, and almost all of our family had been very poor for quite a long time. Brady and I had both been making more money than they'd ever seen in their whole working lives. My success had been reflecting back on them. They didn't want to see that success end, not if there was any way to avoid it. The next morning I was over at Brady's before 5. I had a long haul to make, and I needed to get back to make another delivery early the next day. I had been planning on adding another truck and another driver too, so that I wouldn't have to work any more of these 18-hour days. With the recent developments, expansion was now the last thing on my mind. Did Uncle John tell you what Teresa wanted to do? That junior partnership thing. Combine both businesses is what we're offering. You can have 20% of what we net. After 5 years, we can talk about increasing your share. Not interested. You can have all of it. I have other ideas for things I can do. I might go to college for a couple of years, maybe get my degree like Dale did. At least I won't have to keep getting up at 3:30 and driving all day and half the night. I think Dale had the right idea. What time do you think he has to get up in order to teach those college kids? Maybe 8:30 or so. I was throwing Dale up to him because I was very angry with what he was trying to force me to do. I would be willing to bet that neither of us had mentioned Dale's name out loud to the other in about 5 years. Teresa said we could also work things out in a different way. Maybe increase the price you pay for the wood. Brady, you don't get it. We both know I'm already paying you more for the wood than anyone else ever would. I'm paying more than you're asking as it is. You want to be the boss, but I won't work for you. You want part of my profits, but I won't give them to you. You want me out so you can try to take what I already had. I'm not sure, but I don't think you'll succeed in that either. The problem is that you're good at things I'm not good at, and I'm good at things you aren't good at, or else just won't do. At our best, we support each other and help cover each other's weaknesses. At our worst, like right now, we're probably going to ruin the best chance either of us is likely to get. In a way, I feel lucky because I don't really have much to lose, and no one depends on me for food, clothing, or shelter. If I fail, only I will suffer the consequences. I won't give up, Brady, and without me out here selling all this wood so you can keep bidding on jobs, I'm not sure you'll be able to keep your business profitable once I'm gone. You think like that, Jackson? I wasn't doing so bad before, and I'm in pretty good shape now that I've turned over a lot of the inventory that had been piling up. Even if I had to cut back to half of what we're doing together now, we'd still be getting by. If we did more than half, we'd probably end up making about what we do right now. You might not want to keep trying to piss me off, Brady. Right now, I'm ready to walk away from what I've worked pretty hard to build up. I'm agreeing to do this out of respect for both my parents, and because of their expressed wish that you and I don't end up hurting each other by competing. We both know, though, that I could buy more wood than I'm getting from you, and all of it for at least $2 a cord less than what I'm paying you right now. I could probably get quite a bit of my wood, in the very beginning at least, for up to $6 a cord less. You shouldn't put me in a position where I'm so mad that I stop caring about what my parents want. If I decided to stay in the business, using other people to buy my wood from, you wouldn't be able to last another year. Maybe if that happened, I'd buy the farm from foreclosure though, just to make sure we'd keep it in family hands. Brady stood there smiling at me. We both knew he was barely able to manage not opening the cab door on my truck and reaching in to pull me out of it. I didn't want to tangle with him. I wasn't sure if I could take him now or not. We had both grown stronger in the years since we'd last tangled together. I knew any fight would signal a definite end to our negotiations. Both of us now knew we were negotiating. I figured I could end this right there by agreeing to pay Brady another $1 per cord for his wood. If I did that though, he'd have something he could use as proof that he'd made me concede something to him. I knew I couldn't live with giving him anything more than he was already getting. I wanted us to keep our two companies separate too. He could have all of his, and I'd keep all of mine. He knew now that I wasn't going to give him anything he'd been trying to get. Teresa's going to be real upset, Jackson. She was sure you'd meet us halfway on this. I told her that was unlikely, but she doesn't know you like I do. Eric is upset too. I'm calling off our wedding because of this. I can't go running off to college with a wife to support. All of us are going to put up with things we shouldn't have to though, so I don't feel that bad about having to postpone getting married. I think that was another reason why Teresa hoped you'd work something out with us. That whole wedding thing. I guess this does come at a pretty bad time for you. Just remember that we offered you several ways to get this thing settled. You can't say we weren't willing to try to make things work. I got back from my delivery run at a little after 1 the next morning. I set my alarm clock for 4:30 and fell into my bed. Ross was snoring softly, but I didn't have a problem with getting to sleep. When the alarm rang at 4:30, I had a real difficult time getting up and getting ready to leave. I made it over to Brady's farm at about 5:15. It took about 20 minutes for Brady to get my truck loaded. I sat in the cab, trying to catch a short snooze. Brady woke me up after he got done putting on my load. I drove off to make my delivery, happy that this marked my last delivery of the week. Because of what was happening between Brady and me, I decided not to spend most of my weekend going around trying to establish new accounts. I finished making my delivery at around 11 that morning and drove back to Groton. I stopped off at Erica's house on the way home, but one of her sisters told me that Erica and her mother were out doing something having to do with planning for the wedding. So much for Erica listening to what I'd been telling her. I went home and took myself a nap after finding out that Erica wasn't at home. It was sometime after 6 that afternoon when my mother woke me up. "Jackson, you need to get up now. There's a phone call for you. Someone named Art Driscoll." I was still groggy from just waking up, but I didn't remember anyone named Driscoll. I got up right after Ma left though and threw on the work pants I'd been wearing earlier, before heading out to the wall between the living room and the kitchen, where the phone was. Hello, Jackson. This is Art Driscoll, from over in Niantic. I got your phone number from a mutual friend, Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett was really my father's friend. More of an associate than a friend, I'd say. He and my father exchanged favors from time to time. My father usually did things that Mr. Barrett wanted done. In return for him doing this, Mr. Barrett helped our family with things we got into that needed either legal help or a certain amount of political influence. If Mr. Barrett had given Art Driscoll my phone number, it must have been approved in advance by my father. Mr. Barrett, the attorney? I wanted to make sure we were talking about the right person. That's him all right. The thing is, after he called me, I got to thinking about how you might be interested in helping me with the same kind of problem that you've been helping Brady Blackwell with. I heard you've been going great guns with selling off firewood all around these parts. Thing of it is, I'm kind of in between buyers for my little logging operation right now. I've been told that you've been moving quite a few cords of firewood with your own crew. If you tell me what you need and how much you might be willing to pay for it, I'm sure we can come to a nice little arrangement. While I liked the fact that he sure didn't beat around the bush when it came to telling me why he had called me, I knew I needed to speak with my father before discussing anything further with this Art Driscoll person. It wouldn't do for me to make any plans before he and I had conferred together. I saw my father poised with his knife and fork above his supper plate. He made no bones about the fact that he was listening in on my end of the phone conversation. Listen, Art, things are a little up in the air around here right now. If you'll give me a number I can reach you at, I'll try to call you back in a few days, and maybe we can discuss this some more. As things stand at this moment, Brady and I are trying to work out something that would prevent me from going elsewhere to purchase my firewood. This might change though, and if it did, I'd certainly want to talk with you some more. You say it was Mr. Barrett who called you and told you what I'd been doing. Called me this afternoon, about 4 o'clock it was. It surprised me that he even remembered who I was, or that I'd taken over my daddy's logging crews after he passed last year. He gave you a very good recommendation, Jackson. Told me you were a real go-getter. That's what I've been looking for. My old man was the outside salesman. A lot of his contacts were buried with him. I'm having all I can handle just trying to keep my little operation afloat over here without having any end users committed to buying what I've been cutting. I sure hope you'll find out pretty quick whether or not you and Brady are going to work something out. If it comes down to bidding you the best price, I'm pretty sure I could beat any offer he's likely to be giving you. We do all our own harvesting from our family lands too. Some of that smaller stuff when we're out clearing would be just perfect for sawing up into fireplace logs. I could let you have a whole lot of it on the cheap. I got his phone number and promised he'd hear from me, one way or the other, before the next Friday evening. After I got off the phone with him, I went back to my bedroom to put more clothes on. I could talk on the phone without having my shirt or shoes on, but I couldn't go sit at the supper table like that. I wanted to eat, but I wanted to have that talk with my father even more. I needed to find out just what he was up to. After I was dressed and seated in my place in the kitchen, my mother brought me some corned beef, boiled potatoes, and cabbage, which just happened to be one of my favorite meals. I didn't try to start the conversation with my father. I knew if I dug in and started eating, he'd get around to explaining whatever he thought I needed to know. I hadn't finished squashing down my potatoes and adding butter to them and the cabbage before he started right in talking. Mr. Barrett mentioned to me that he knew someone who was in a very similar line of work to what Brady does. I'm glad he called the man and put the two of you into touch. That's as far as it's ever going to go though. At least it is as far as you're concerned. Brady and Teresa don't need to know that. When I talked to Mr. Barrett this morning and filled him in on what's been happening with you two fools, he kind of came down to your way of looking at things. He agrees that Brady might not be able to keep his business things together, even if he did try to get someone else to sell his firewood for him. What I don't understand is why you pay Brady more than you'd pay anyone else, Yutch? From what I've been hearing, and I've really been calling and asking around, you're paying him more than the retail price people usually pay around here. A lot of that other firewood is pure crap, Pop. What Brady sells me is prime hardwoods. By the time he loads it on my truck, it's already cut, sized, dried, and ready to be put into a fireplace. I never get green wood, or something that won't burn for a long time once it's lit up in a furnace or over a fireplace grate. Brady cares about quality, takes pride in what he's doing. He doesn't mix in junk with the good stuff either. Our buyers, they appreciate getting prime firewood, mostly because the other vendors are usually out there trying to put something over on them. What about the guy who just called you? I don't have any idea. To get one, I'd probably need to ask Brady to look at what he's hoping to sell me. I can't see Brady being that accommodating about something like that. My father laughed, a slightly snorting sound coming from his nose when he did. The sum and total of what we're going to do is to let Brady get wind of the fact that this art guy has called you, and that he seems anxious to get you to do some business with him. You aren't ever going to do any business you understand. So just get that out of your head right away. If Brady thinks you've decided to not just walk away from your business, Mr. Barrett and I both think he'll go back to seeing things the same way you see them. Why this sudden change in attitude, Pop? Before, all you were telling me was that I was trying to hurt Brady and Teresa. What made things different for you? It wasn't that simple. Don't kid yourself. The thing is, this was the only idea we could come up with that kept things the same way as they are now, where both of you are doing well and making some decent money for yourselves. Your Uncle Bill and Aunt Margaret, they both agree that you two clowns need to be joined together at the hip to make this thing of yours stay working. Plus, your mother and Erica are both convinced that you need to get yourself married and settled down some before you end up doing something stupid like you'd probably do if you didn't have someone like Erica to help you decide things. Is that right, Ma? You think I'd be doing something stupid if I waited a few more years before getting married? My mother was standing over close to my father, waiting to see if anyone wanted something else to eat before she fixed herself a plate and sat down. She'd only do this after she knew that all of us were already finished eating. I'd been watching her reactions while my father had been talking. She'd been nodding right along with him when he'd been talking about me and Brady and about Uncle Bill and Aunt Margaret, but she'd stopped nodding when he'd started talking about her and Erica. My mother made a face, but she refused to say anything to contradict what my father was telling me. I knew this meant she was in agreement with him, about all the main things at least. As far as I knew, my mother wasn't particularly anxious for me to be going off and getting married to anyone. I'd been slipping her more than a few dollars every week, ever since I'd started making my own way in the world. Even back when I'd just been caddying, I'd always given her $5 or $10 a week, telling her to get something for herself. Usually, Ma and my Aunt Margaret went off to one of the churches to play bingo, at least 1 or 2 nights every week. I knew my father wasn't giving her any money to be doing that. I'd also heard her in the kitchen before, talking to my Aunt Margaret about how I was too young to be settling down like I was planning on doing. Pay attention when I'm talking to you, God damn it. You have the attention span of a gnat. What we've decided, Mr. Barrett and me, is to light a little fire under Brady's butt. I'll get the word out to him tonight that we're all worried that you've decided to strike off on your own, in spite of what we've all been telling you. We think he'll decide to go back to towing the mark as soon as he finds out you might be thinking about going into business with some of his direct competition. Brady's no dummy, you know. He'll be able to figure out what's better for him in the long run. It was clear, just from the expression on my father's face as he spoke, that he still believed he was the one calling the shots in both Brady's and my life. Brady and I were both grown men, yet he treated us like we were still inexperienced kids. What I had been realizing all along was that Brady and I needed to change how we interacted. I couldn't keep letting him try to control the terms of our business dealings. And if that was true between Brady and me, it was even more true regarding both of us and my father. There he was again, positioning himself as the ultimate authority on what Brady and I should be doing. I didn't say anything to him after that. When I was through eating, I went out to my truck and drove over to Erica's house. This time, she was home, and we sat in the living room with her parents for a few minutes before heading out to have some private time for ourselves. Things with Erica's mother and me had never been too good. She thought I was way beneath Erica when it came to class, culture, and breeding. It galled her that Erica didn't share her opinion of me. Erica liked to say things to rub her mother's nose in the fact that she and I were physically intimate. I might have had my doubts about how anxious my mother might or might not be to see me married to Erica, but I didn't have any doubt at all about Erica's mother. She never tried to hide her disapproval of me. I never tried to hide the fact that her opinion meant little or nothing to me. We didn't spit every time we came into each other's presence, but we didn't try to disguise the obvious truth that we didn't like each other either. Fortunately, Erica's father and I got along quite well. Between him and Erica, they kept a sort of uneasy truce from erupting into all-out war. Jackson, Erica was telling us that you want to call off the wedding because you're soon to be out of work? Mrs. DePaul was smiling widely when she said this, obviously hoping I would confirm what she'd heard. I let Erica have her full minute of intense glaring at her mother before I answered her question. I thought about doing that. It seemed like it would be the only decent thing I could do. Of course, that was before Erica told me that you and Mr. DePaul have plenty of money yourselves already and lots of extra room in this big old house. When she reminded me that we could always move back into her old bedroom if things ever get too tight for us, I stopped worrying so much. We'll probably be all right for a while ourselves, though, as long as Erica doesn't get herself knocked up too soon and lose out on that waitress job she's been looking into. I'm not that old-fashioned, you know. It wouldn't bother me at all to be living off of Erica's wages if I needed to do it. As far as living here goes, all we'd need to change would be to get a lock put on that bathroom door so you wouldn't keep barging in on us when we're playing together in the shower. Erica and her father laughed. Mrs. DePaul got up and left the living room. We waited a minute to see if she'd be coming back or not. Then we left to go out for a drive. Poor mommy. She loves planning our wedding, but she hates the idea of me marrying you. I still don't know why she doesn't see how perfect you are for me. Wouldn't it be perfect if I ended up getting pregnant as soon as we got married? She'd hate that more than anything. I wish we could sneak back to the house and listen to what she's telling Daddy right now. He's going to be in so much trouble because he was laughing at what you told her. Poor Daddy. My father has been plotting with a friend of his to try to get Brady and Teresa to stop trying to run me off. I guess some other people have figured out that what I've been saying would happen might be right. They've decided that Brady and I should keep working together. That's good, right? Good that we should keep working together, but bad that people are treating us like kids who need to be forced into doing what the grown-ups want. I'm getting tired of having so many people thinking they can tell me what to do. You shouldn't let anyone make you do anything you don't want to do, Jackson. Except for me, of course, but I'm going to be married to you, so you know I'll only want what's best for us. Erica and I went over to a place I knew and parked for a while. Ever since we'd started spending time together, Erica had really come alive. She had less patience for waiting than I did, and I hoped it wasn't just a passing phase. I loved her enthusiasm. She still enjoyed role-playing games, even now that we were actually doing things together. I didn't bring her back home until just past midnight. She had convinced me to leave 2 noticeable marks on her neck, one on each side, right under her ears. She said if I didn't, she might ask someone else to do it. After I did, she admitted she might have been bluffing. I wasn't sure if I believed her. I spent most of the weekend thinking about what had already happened and about what my father was up to. In some ways, I was ready to give up on my business. I really liked Brady and Teresa a lot, and even though I had some hard feelings about what they were trying to do, they were still family people I was used to rooting for, not against. I knew my father was trying to do what he thought was best for all of us. I didn't like the idea of him manipulating things around in order to get his own way with Brady. This was really just something that was between Brady, Teresa, and me. If Brady was forced to back down because of what my father was arranging, then he and I were even less likely to be able to work out something permanent that we could both live with. It was really only the 2 of us who could decide how we needed to treat each other. I had my own ideas of how we should treat each other, but first I needed to gain Brady's respect in order to get him to look at what I thought was fair with an open mind. I couldn't get that respect I needed as long as he still considered himself superior to me. It was so ingrained in him, this cocky air of superiority he walked around displaying. For so many years he'd gotten what he wanted because all of his peers were afraid of him. He'd gone unchallenged for so long, simply because he'd been thought to be unbeatable. Being tough had always been the only way he'd ever gotten any respect. He had used that to make a place for himself among his peers. That had worked when we'd been children. We were no longer children. It wasn't still okay to settle arguments with our fists or our feet. I knew we couldn't just walk out to the back of the farm and decide things with our fists. It didn't matter which one of us would win if we had a fist fight. If we were going to be working together successfully, there needed to be an environment where the best ideas won out. I wanted to do what was best for all of us, not have to go along with the demands of someone who had only proven that he was a lot tougher than everyone else. Saturday evening, after I came back home, I'd made up my mind about what I needed to do. I called Brady. I made sure to talk loudly enough so my father could hear what I was telling Brady on the telephone. Brady, this is Jackson. Do you know a guy named Art Driscoll? I heard about this already, from your father, Jackson. I guess this means you're going ahead with what you were threatening. No, I'm calling to let you know I'm not going to do anything to compete with you. You can have it all, Brady. I don't think you'll end up with anything better by going it alone, but I won't be doing anything to hurt your chances of succeeding. You need to let me know if you're interested in buying my trucks or not, though. I'm going to need that money for when I start school. Uncle John said you were talking to Art. Didn't he offer you a good enough deal? I haven't called him back yet. When I do, I'll tell him I'm not interested. This wasn't something I set up. My father did it with Mr. Barrett. They wanted to make us stop fighting about this. They figured you'd knuckle under as soon as you knew I was planning on selling someone else's wood. This was Uncle John's idea, his and Mr. Barrett's. They think we're still kids, that they can manipulate us into doing what they want. Teresa wants to know if you're still going to be getting married or not. Not right away. Eric has always been used to living in big houses, having nice clothes to wear. She doesn't think she'd miss having that, but she would. I'm going to be living kind of hand-to-mouth for a few years, until I either graduate and get a good job, or until I come up with another business idea that I can start on a shoestring budget. When I do get married, I don't want to still be poor. Listen, Jackson, maybe we can still find some way to work this thing out? Teresa and me, we never wanted to make it so you wanted to stop working with us. We just thought we could all agree to make some changes, to make things fairer. We've been talking about things a lot lately, and now, maybe we're starting to think that things weren't as far out of line as we first thought they were. When we found out you were talking to Driscoll, Teresa and I both realized where that would leave us. Even if you don't start buying his wood, now that he's thinking along those lines, Art is going to find somebody else to go out and start to compete with us. You were right about how us selling all that wood is what allows us to outbid all the local competition. What we were thinking now is what might happen if one of the big outfits decides they want to get into taking some of their clearing cuts and start selling their own firewood to the heating and oil distributors. We couldn't compete with anyone big. We don't have the resources to do it. Now we know we need to try to make hay now, while we aren't faced with that kind of competition. I've thought of that too, but from what I've seen so far, these independent distributors don't like or trust any of the big guys. They're more like us, guys who aren't afraid of a little work. I think most of them like throwing their trade my way because they know my business is even smaller than theirs. Anyway, it's going to be all your problem now, Brady, not mine. I don't want to be in any business where I'm not at least equal to everyone else involved. That's just bullshit, Jackson. How can you say you aren't our equal when you're the one making more than we are out of this whole deal? There are lots of ways to not be equal, Brady. For instance, having someone telling you that you have to do what they want, or else they'll run right out and replace you. How is it being equal when someone can threaten to replace you anytime they want to? You wouldn't listen when we tried to get you to be more fair with us. Besides, you're the one who said you could buy your wood from somewhere else and save some money. Where would that leave us then? It leaves you right where you were before I bought that truck from Uncle Donald and started buying wood from you. You don't like it that I'm making money. You think you should make it all. I've got some news for you, Brady. If I wasn't making money selling your wood, I wouldn't spend so much of my time doing it. I make the money I make because I found something that people think they need, something they're willing to pay my price for. I'm not making my money because I made you discount the cost from what you'd normally charge Joe Shit the Ragman for that wood. I'm making it because I went out and found some people who would pay me the price I needed to get to make it worth spending my time and energy to sell and deliver it. They decided that paying my asking price was a good deal. It left them in a situation where they could pay me what I needed and still make enough money reselling the wood to their own customers. You make enough that it wouldn't kill you to share some of that with us. Teresa doesn't think this logging business is going to last forever. We need to put something away for the time when there are no more lots that need clearing. Right now, we're getting by okay, but what happens if I get hurt, or if we can't find any new jobs to bid on? Get some insurance, or else start living on less than what you're making. That's how the rest of us protect ourselves, Brady. I don't understand why you and Teresa think you should suddenly get to be my partners in order to solve your security fears. Why aren't you asking the people who let you clear their land to take less for that? You don't do that because they'd tell you to pound sand if you did. All I can figure is that you're like my old man, and you think I'm still some child. Maybe you believe you can come to me and take anything I have away from me, just like you used to do when we were kids. That isn't what I think, Jackson. This isn't taking. This is just us asking you to be a little bit fairer with us. My father is right about one thing, Brady. You were in the wood business first, and I shouldn't go out and set myself up in competition with you. That's the only reason why I'm letting you take away this one last thing of mine. After this time, though, I won't just be standing by and letting you do that to me anymore. I put the phone into the handle on the wall. I looked over at my father to see if he had anything he wanted to tell me about what he'd been listening in on for the past few minutes. Instead of being angry or starting to yell at me, he sat in his chair smiling his big smile, obviously pleased. What's so funny, Pop? You, Yutch. You and that harebrained cousin of yours. Did you really think I was stupid enough that I didn't already know how the two of you think? Instead of being mad at each other now, you're both mad at me. Problem solved. The problem is solved all right, but only as long as what you were trying to have happen was having Brady and Teresa going it alone again in their business. I hope that was it, because that's what's going to be happening now. I'm done with this. I really don't want to work with him anymore. Now, I was the one that was smiling at him. I knew he already knew I hadn't been fooled by his little ploy. He'd been using that same trick on all of us kids since back when we were all little. He'd make all of us mad at him, so we'd cooperate with each other, uniting against a common enemy. Did you do all of this to get out of marrying Erica like you promised? That came out of left field, surprising me that he'd changed the subject so abruptly. Do you really think I'd pull a stunt like that? Did you? Not exactly. I mean, I'm still marrying her. Probably on the 12th too, just like we've planned all along. I can't be positive about the date though, not until after I find out what Teresa and Brady are going to be doing. I thought you already told them they could have everything. Didn't you mean it? I meant it. Now, I'm going to have to wait to see if they still want it now that they have it. I give them about 2 weeks before they come looking for me again. When I turned away from him to go to my bedroom, I wondered how he liked knowing that I was now manipulating him. I didn't feel guilty for having done it either. Even if all of this ended up turning out just the way I wanted it to, I wasn't going to be any better off, and I'd still be mad at all the aggravation I'd been caused. Over the years, I'd watched as at least 100 of these little dramas had unfolded within our family. My father had been right in the middle of most of them, and had either instigated them on his own, or had been busy adding fuel to a fire that was already ablaze. He liked stirring up trouble in the family, especially among all his in-laws. I started calling all my regular customers, telling them I was getting married soon, and letting them know I'd be unavailable to make any more deliveries until the end of August. Lenny was still working at the golf course as the caddy master, but they had already told him it would be his last season, since they were switching over to carts and completely doing away with caddies. They had these new pull carts at the course now, and half the players were already electing to pull their own bags. Since getting this news, Lenny had been in a somewhat depressed state. Somehow, he was able to take off from the golf course 1 or 2 days a week. When that happened, he was coming over to drive for me. When he did that, I'd give him a little extra. It was worth the extra money to have him there helping me out. I wasn't sure how Lenny was getting so much time off, but I hadn't pressed him too closely about it. I was very concerned about what Lenny would do if I wasn't still out there selling and delivering firewood. Now that Shinnecock Country Club was switching over to pull carts, Lenny couldn't even count on earning some money by going back to caddying. I had a few months to go before I really needed to start worrying about what I could do for Lenny. On Sunday, Teresa called me, wanting to know what my delivery schedule was for the upcoming week. I told her I didn't have any deliveries scheduled. I asked her if Brady had made a decision yet about buying my trucks. This isn't how we wanted it, Jackson. Brady's been out there getting all this wood ready for you. What are we supposed to live on if you just stop selling the wood we've already paid for? That isn't my problem, Terry. I'm not in the firewood sales and delivery business anymore. You seem to think what I did was pretty easy back when you were telling me how hard Brady worked and how easy I had it. Brady told me he was going to hire someone to sell wood for him. I already told you how much I'd sell my trucks to you for. Have Brady go out and hire a couple of guys. You'll be all right. I got a call later that day from my Uncle Bill. He wanted me to think about changing my mind. He told me that he and my aunt had told Brady that they thought it was fair that I kept my own business and that Brady kept his. My Uncle Bill worked at the post office, and he was constantly worried that Brady was going to end up in trouble. Brady had taken great satisfaction over the last few years by proving to his father that he wasn't going to end up anything like the way that Uncle Bill had been predicting. By Tuesday, my mother and my father were both giving me hell about being so stubborn. My mother was pulling out all the stops, saying whatever she could to try to make me feel guilty about leaving my cousin in the lurch like I had. Reading between the lines of what she was saying, I gathered that Brady hadn't found anyone yet who wanted to drive around, at his own expense, looking for people to buy Brady's wood. I knew Brady was too cheap to ever offer to cover anyone's expenses. I listened to my mother, letting her make her case before I told her I was no longer interested in being in the firewood business. This was the first week I hadn't given her any extra spending money since I'd started selling the wood. It turned out to be the first week she didn't go off to the church to play bingo too. Erica and I went out Tuesday night. When I got to her house, she was all excited. Teresa had called her and had asked her to intercede with me about at least coming back to work long enough to sell off the wood that Brady already had cut, stacked, dried, and ready for sale. Erica thought I should do it. We were going to Reno for our honeymoon, and Erica said she wanted a good honeymoon, not something cheap, because we'd be scrimping to have enough to get an apartment to live in after we got back. When I thought about what she was asking, it made sense to me. I already had the honeymoon money saved up, but I was bored out of my mind from just sitting around doing nothing. Besides, I thought I'd have some fun and turn things around with Brady and Teresa. When I agreed to do it, Erica got even more excited, begging me to go into her house and give Brady and Teresa a call to tell them of my decision. Hey, Brady, this is Jackson. You decide about buying my trucks or not yet? I don't have any money for buying those trucks. Is that all you called about? No, actually it isn't. Erica told me that Teresa had called her. Something about you having too much wood laying around. She wondered if I might sell some for you. Are you going to? How much wood? And at what price to me? What do you mean what price? The same as always. Don't try to pull that shit on me, Jackson. You know what price. How many cords do you have ready? I'm not sure of the exact amount. Maybe 600 that are seasoned and ready. Another 200 that are still a little bit green. That's a lot. I can use 2 cords for Erica's house, and another 2 for Doris Cromwell. Shouldn't I get the same price as other people who come to the farm to buy wood off of you, though? I don't mind loading it myself. Don't you come out here if you think you can tease me and play your little games like that. I should have known you'd try to pull something like this. I don't need your business, Jackson. You can just stay away, and we'll get along well enough without your help. When I got off the phone, Erica wasn't smiling. Instead of coming back outside with me so we could go out to eat somewhere, she told me she had a headache and needed to cancel our date. I stood there looking at her. I was getting mad. Okay, you take care of that headache of yours. Call me when you're feeling better, or if you decide you need to cancel anything else. I turned and let myself back out. Erica was supposed to be on my side in this. I was fighting a battle here with Brady. How it turned out was going to affect how we lived for the next few years at least. I didn't like the idea of her thinking she could punish me because she didn't like the way I was treating my cousin. I didn't hear from Erica or Brady until the weekend. Erica called first on Saturday morning. She started in by asking me whether I had gotten over whatever it was that put me in such a negative mood the last time. I expect you to see my side of things, Erica. I don't like you thinking that you can get pissed off at me because I do something you wish I hadn't done. I won't stand for that. The call was over almost before it had begun. I'd been feeling tense and on edge ever since that night with the phone call to Brady and Erica's reaction to it. With her deciding to not talk to me for a while, I became even more tense. I was brooding in my bedroom about 2 hours later when Brady called for me. When I came to the phone, he didn't say hello or anything. He started right in with business. How much per cord for the whole 600? I don't have buyers right now for 600 cords. That's 50 truckloads. Even if I offered to pay you $5 a cord less than our old usual price, it would take me a month to unload them on the dealers I know. $5 less. You think I'm stupid? If you weren't, Brady, you would have never let yourself get into this kind of mess. You're good at turning money into wood. I'm good at turning that wood back into money. Right about now, you and Teresa are finally figuring out that wood is good for keeping you warm, but you can't eat it, and it doesn't pay your bills, not unless someone turns it into money first. I don't need any lectures from you, Jackson. Are you going to help me out here, or not? Well, since you asked me so nicely, sure. I can take 2 loads out on Monday. I'll be there at 5. What am I supposed to be doing while I'm waiting for you to get your lazy butt over here at 5? I can't go earlier, Brady. The first guy doesn't open up until 9. I was going to stop and get some breakfast on the way, but it's only a 2-hour drive. Give me a break, why don't you? The next morning I made sure to get there at 4:30, but Brady was already out there moving my load into position for me. When I got out of the truck, he didn't say anything, and neither did I. While he was loading the truck for me, I went inside to take a leak and get some coffee. Teresa was already up and doing something in the kitchen. She said hi to me as I was pouring the coffee for myself. I said hello back to her. She handed me an invoice for the 2 loads I was picking up that day. It was at our old price, with a $120 deduction shown at the bottom. This reflected the $5 discount per cord I'd asked for. I handed her a check made out for the full amount at the old price. She took it and then stared at the amount. Brady said the other price is what you two agreed to. I know. I just thought I'd try to be fair. I've always thought this was a fair price for me to be paying. I didn't want to pay more, but I didn't want to pay less either, even if I could. I finished my coffee after Terry took the check into Brady's little cubbyhole of an office. I went back outside before she came back to the kitchen. Brady and I weren't saying anything after I got back to my truck. I had missed our former easy banter and the harmless insults and kidding that we usually let fly at each other. We both had a lot of years being on pins and needles with each other when we were kids. I hated thinking that it was going to be like that again from now on. When the truck was loaded, Brady got off the forklift and walked back to his house without saying anything to me. I drove off before he had a chance to talk to Terry about my check. I made my delivery and hurried back to the farm to get my second load, arriving just after 11:30. Brady already had the load ready to be put on the truck by the time I got there. What time are you going to be finished with this run, Jackson? I should be unloaded and on my way back before 3. What? We need to talk. Why don't you come back here for supper tonight? We're having spaghetti and meatballs. Teresa made some lemon meringue pies too. I should make it back before 5:30. Will that be too late? Brady shook his head no, that it wouldn't be too late. I knew he liked to have supper early, because he liked to turn in early, and he didn't like to go to bed feeling too full. I took it as a good sign that he was inviting me for supper. If he'd wanted to keep us fighting and arguing, it wouldn't be over the supper table. Brady didn't like eating when he was upset any more than I did. I was looking forward to Teresa's spaghetti and her lemon meringue pie. I hoped this meant that the three of us were going to agree to leave things just like they had been before this whole mess started. I got back a little after 5. Maybe I hurried just a little. I really was looking forward to getting this whole business resolved. Teresa had taken their 2 children over somewhere to be watched, so it was just the 3 of us at the dinner table. We had just sat down, me with a bottle of ale, and Brady with a beer and a shot of 4 Roses. Teresa had a large glass of red wine. How did it go today, Jackson? Have any trouble making those deliveries? Brady surprised me. I thought the drinks were part of some toast he was going to be offering after we all had agreed to a ceasefire, truce, or whatever you wanted to call it. No trouble. It felt good to be doing something besides lying around doing nothing. How about you? Did you throw your back out doing all that loading today? I took it pretty easy today. Had a couple visitors this morning though. 2 guys who work for a big outfit upstate. The thing of it is, I sold them all the wood I have ready. Same price as you said you were going to pay me too. They said they'll take all the wood I can get ready for them. I talked to a few other guys that are in the business. These guys have been going around buying up all the wood they can lay their hands on. I took a long swig on the bottle, hoping to think of something to say once I got over the initial shock of hearing Brady's news. This was an unexpected development. The thing that bothered me the most was watching Brady and Teresa's smiles as they anticipated my reaction. I didn't want them thinking this news bothered me as much as it did. That's good then. To be honest, I didn't care much for having to get up so early again. I guess this means you won't have any use for those 2 trucks I'm trying to sell. No use at all. It looks like we're all set for that part of my business you were telling me I wasn't any good at. Brady drank down his shot, then chased it down with his beer, smacking his lips loudly after each sip. As he looked at me, he smiled with what I recognized as satisfaction over having proved me wrong in my estimate of his skills. Supper was good, but I was just a little off my usual appetite. I was upset, but I didn't want to give either of them the satisfaction of knowing for sure that I was. I had only a small piece of the lemon meringue pie, just enough to not let Terry know for sure that my stomach was tying itself up in knots. Just as I was getting up and telling them both good night, thanking them for the meal, Terry asked me what I was planning to do now that I wasn't selling their wood anymore. I'm not sure. Probably nothing until after Erica and I get back from our honeymoon. We'll have to wait and see after that. I might go to college, or else I might go find someone like Art Driscoll and see if he still wants to do some business with me. In a way, this is a good thing for both of us. We can all do what we know is best for ourselves, without worrying about how it might affect people we know and care about. I'm a little worried about Lenny, but I'll think of something. You aren't mad at what we did then? Teresa was looking at my face when she asked. She wasn't smiling. I thought she was really worried. I'm not mad. I think it might be for the best, really. The only bad part one can see is that all your competition will have money now to bid against you for new logging contracts. This will probably drive your bidding costs higher. My crew is better than most of the others. That gives me an advantage too. We'll do okay. Glad to hear it. Thanks for the supper, Terry. I really enjoyed it. I guess we'll see you at the wedding. On the drive back home, I had a chance to think about what Brady's news really meant to me. For one thing, it meant I was free to pursue my business without fear of anyone accusing me of hurting Brady. That was good. I knew I'd have to find out more about these big buyers from upstate. I'd never heard of them before Brady told me their name. I was planning to call some of my bigger coal and heating oil distributors to see what they knew about this outfit. Brady said he'd signed a contract, but he hadn't offered to let me read what it said. He also hadn't mentioned how or when he'd be paid for his wood. On the 12th of August, Erica and I exchanged our marital vows in front of all our friends and family. There was a terrific reception over at the Moose Lodge that Mr. DePaul paid for. There was quite a bit of drinking by my family, but everyone was on their best behavior. I had made some inquiries like I'd planned, but no one I talked to had heard of that company. By the time I got around to calling Art Driscoll, he too had signed a contract with these guys. It was starting to look like I'd missed the boat for this particular business. I was having a hard time deciding whether or not I really wanted to go off to college. I liked the idea of going to college, but I didn't much care for the idea of being poor while I did it. Even with my savings, I'd need to work part-time if I wanted to be able to afford to live in a halfway decent place. I had gotten to like having my own business and making a decent living. In a way, I felt like I'd failed and needed to start all over again. I didn't like feeling that way. I'd almost decided to look into finding some trade I could apprentice myself to when something happened to change everything. Checks that the small and not so small logging people were given for their wood started being returned with the notation that there were non-sufficient funds in the account to cover them. Brady was one of the luckier ones, having refused to allow the wood to leave his farm until after he'd received confirmation that the check to pay for it was good. A lot of the other loggers didn't fare as well. For some of them, taking such a big hit on their assets was too much for them to survive in business. Art Driscoll ended up losing his business and all of his land and logging equipment along with it. Erica and I were in a hotel overlooking the beautiful Truckee River in Reno when my father contacted us with the news about Brady's new problem. I told him I was sorry for Brady and Teresa, but I was actually pretty busy enjoying my honeymoon. I told him I'd be happy to listen to what he had to tell me when Erica and I got back home in another week. Even as I hung up the phone, my mind was starting to get excited by the possibilities this news had raised. I was wondering how bad Brady was feeling, and I couldn't wait until we got back to town. I was also thinking they'd invite Erica and I over to their place for supper pretty soon after we returned. I expected I'd have a pretty good appetite for whatever it was they planned on dishing up. I knew that Brady would be eating crow. The second part of my honeymoon was a lot more pleasant than the first part had been. Erica and I went for walks and spent time doing some things outside of our hotel room for a change. We took sightseeing bus trips to Carson City, Lake Tahoe, and Virginia City. For the first time since we'd gotten married, I didn't have any big worries or problems with deciding what I was going to do. I knew I was going back to my firewood business. Now that I knew that, I could admit to myself how much giving up the business had bothered me. Everyone in my family had heard the story of Brady selling all his wood to this other company. Even before we got married, I'd gotten calls from uncles, aunts, and cousins telling me that they thought Brady had treated me unfairly. Each time anyone said that to me, I told them that I didn't mind what Brady had done. I always said Brady had an obligation to do whatever he thought was best for his business and for his wife and children. Me having gone on the record saying that would really work in my favor. I didn't think anyone would hold it against me if I decided not to buy my wood from him after this had happened. Brady would know this as well as I did. I was sure he'd be having uncomfortable thoughts about how I was going to treat him now that he really needed me again. I had a plan by the time we boarded our plane to fly back home again. It was a simple plan, but one that was diabolical for all of that. What I planned on doing was going back to Groton and treating the whole incident as if it had never occurred. I couldn't wait to see the look on Brady's face when I told him I was still willing to go back to our old deal. Even my own father would be expecting me to do something to get some revenge for what Brady had pulled on me. I didn't need to do anything to punish him. Brady had already done that to himself. If Brady or Teresa had ever had any doubts about whether I could be trusted not to take advantage of them, what I'd be doing should satisfy all of them. Right after Erica and I got back from our Reno honeymoon, she and her mother found us a nice rental house over on Fort Hill Road in Pequannock Bridge. The rent was more than I was comfortable paying, what with no income coming in yet. But Erica loved the house, and I loved Erica. I spent even more money paying for all the furnishings we needed. We'd done pretty well with wedding gifts, so things like towels, toasters, bread boxes, blankets, linens, irons, and ironing boards were taken care of already. I already had my own television set, record player, and radio. I bought a used Chevy for Erica to drive. Now that I knew I wasn't headed off to college anytime soon, I was willing to spend some of my savings. Erica was so happy and excited to be playing house for real, and seeing her being so happy made me feel good. We'd been home for over 2 weeks, and still I hadn't heard one word from Brady or Teresa. I was beginning to worry that maybe I'd miscalculated. My brother, Ross, came over to see the new house. We were sitting in the living room talking after Erica and I had given him the grand tour of the place. Erica had gone off to the kitchen to start making our supper. This gave me a chance to start pumping him for information about what had been happening. What's going on, Ross? Where's everyone else been hiding? I haven't heard from hardly anyone since Erica and I got back from the honeymoon. Are they all mad at me for something? We're all waiting to see what you're going to do, Jackson. The old man told all of us not to try to rush you or push you into doing anything. You know he's really pissed off about what Brady did to you, right? He says it would serve them right if you let them lose everything now. Brady has told everybody that he doesn't care what they think of him. The reason he's not calling you is because he doesn't want to listen to you telling him that you told him so. Teresa had to borrow some money from her parents, but they told her however much they lent her was all they had to lend. Are you going to keep selling wood? Pop doesn't have any right to be pissed at Brady. He's one of the reasons all these flare-ups keep getting built up like they do. He makes every little thing seem like it's something really big. This is between Brady and me. It always was. He should just keep out of our business. Brady and I can both take care of ourselves. Ross and I didn't speak any further about the situation with Brady. Erica made us dinner, and after that, Ross borrowed $20 from me, then got me to give him a ride over to where a friend of his lived in my truck. The old man is going to ask me what we talked about. What do you want me to tell him? I don't know, Ross. Tell him what I said. I don't care. Tell him I said he's making things worse by getting involved where he doesn't belong. Tell him we'll be coming over to see him and Ma pretty soon, after we get settled in at our new place. Do you want me to go see Brady and tell him anything for you? No. If I have anything to tell Brady, I'll tell him myself. It isn't like when we were kids and we had to send other people around to try to get things fixed. I'm not mad at Brady. I just haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. If you're going to do something, now is a pretty good time to be doing it. You need to go see Lenny too. He's been pretty worried that you haven't told him what he's going to be doing now that you aren't selling Brady's wood anymore. Labor Day is almost here, and you know what that means. No more caddy master job for Lenny. You need to go over there pretty soon and let him know where he stands, okay? I don't know where he stands. I don't know yet where I stand. I'll go see him though. There are lots of things Lenny can do. Do you think Pop can go see somebody and get him on over at Electric Boat? Don't you remember he tried a few years ago? Lenny didn't want to work there because of all the noise. Lenny likes being outdoors and doing things. I think he's hoping to maybe get work over at the golf course, as an assistant groundskeeper or something. It doesn't pay that much, but Lenny likes working over there. I knew those guys didn't make much, maybe 25 to 30 bucks a week. Lenny and his family couldn't do much on that kind of dough, even living with his mother like they did. When I got back to the house, I started calling some of my best customers, lining up some deliveries for the next 2 weeks. One piece of good news was that none of the people I talked to had gotten their firewood anywhere else while I'd taken over a month off from work. They all acted happy to hear from me, and most of them were ready to place some big orders. Now, all I had to do was find some place to buy all the wood I'd committed to selling and delivering. I had set up my first deliveries for the Tuesday after Labor Day. I called over to Lenny's house, but my Aunt Betty told me that Lenny was still over at the golf course. I asked her to have him call me when he got back so that he and I could go over his delivery schedule for the coming week. You're still going to have Lenny working with you, Jackson? Aunt Betty sounded excited and relieved, but wanted to confirm that she'd understood me correctly. I'm still going to be selling firewood, and I still have 2 trucks, so why wouldn't Lenny be working for me? Don't tell me he went off and found another job without checking with me first. No, Lenny wouldn't do that. We all thought, with the problems you and Brady have been having, maybe you weren't going to be using Lenny for any more driving. He's been a little worried. I'll have him call you when he gets in. I gave her my new phone number and gave her my new address too. We talked about my being married and about the honeymoon I'd just returned from. After I got off the phone with my aunt, I rang over to Brady's house. Hello. Hi. Terry, this is Jackson. Is Brady around? Jackson. Hi. How was the honeymoon? I talked to your mother, and she told me you found a place over by the bridge in Pequannock. Aren't you afraid of living right there on the river? What about when it floods? We're just renting, Terry. If it floods, we'll move. It isn't right on the river anyway. We're about 40 feet above the river, higher than the top of the bridge railing. It would have to be one hell of a flood. Is Brady available? He's outside. Hold on, and I'll go get him. I waited almost 5 minutes before Brady came in to pick up the receiver on the phone. Is that you, Jackson? How's married life treating you? I figured that Brady had taken most of the time from when Teresa told him I was calling to decide on how he wanted to handle that first greeting. Brady and I both knew this was an important phone call. So far, so good. We've been back for a while now, but we're starting to get settled in at our new place. You and Terry should come out and look at it sometime. We're about a quarter mile away from Doris Cromwell's store. I guess you already heard about what happened to my bigwood sale. I heard the company fizzled out, but I heard you were one of the lucky ones and they didn't get your wood. Lucky my butt. I wasn't about to just assume their damn check was any good. Those guys that did, well, they got about what they deserved, in my opinion. Are you interested in maybe selling some of that wood? To who? You. When I got back, I called a few people to try to find out if all that firewood got dumped on the market or not. Doesn't look like it did, not as far as any of the people I talked with. I picked up firm orders for 200 cords to be delivered over the next 2 weeks, beginning next Tuesday. I thought I'd see if you were interested before I called anyone else. I'd have to know how much you were offering before I could say if I was or not. I'd give you a fair price, Brady, just like I always have. Why wouldn't I want to be fair? You and me, Jackson, we haven't always seen eye to eye on what's fair. That's true enough, we haven't. I was hoping that was all over with by now. We both have families to feed now. It can be hard enough to manage that, even without worrying about whether or not someone is setting out to cheat you or looking for some way to beat you out of what you're entitled to. I've always thought I'd be willing to give up getting the best price when I bought from you, because I always knew I could count on the quality of the wood I'd be getting and on the quality of the person I was buying my wood from. It also helped, knowing that my buying from you was assuring that you'd turn a profit too. I always felt good doing business with you, Brady. We're family, and I never forget what that means to both of us. Knowing who you are, and both of us knowing how the two of us usually do what we say we will, that's always added to my feeling that us working together was the best way for us to go. So what time are you going to be here next Tuesday, Jackson? I couldn't be positive, but I was pretty sure that Brady's voice had cracked from some of the emotion he was feeling when he asked me that question. You would have to know Brady to know how seldom he ever expressed any emotion other than anger. I knew then that he'd been feeling as much or more tension as I had over how this phone call was going to turn out. Lenny and me, we should be pulling in sometime around 5. We'll both be coming back to reload around noon. You think you can handle 4 loads in one day all by yourself, Brady? I think I can manage it. Am I supposed to get down on my knees and kiss your butt now, Jackson? I'm sure that's what my old man, Uncle Donald, and your old man are going to be thinking I should be doing. I knew the question Brady was really asking. He wanted to know how much shit everyone was going to be expecting him to take over what had happened earlier. He was asking if I was going to be adding my own measure to that pile. I don't know about you, Brady, but I'm getting a little sick of all those other people interfering in our private business. I haven't spoken to any of them about what my plans are for us getting back to working together, and I don't have any intention of doing so. I'd just as soon leave them out of any future plans or changes the two of us might decide we want to make. As far as whether you should be kissing my butt or not, I appreciate you thinking of me that way, but if it's all the same to you, I'm not ready to get involved like that with you. At the very most, maybe you could bow down whenever you see my truck coming into your yard. You know how likely something like that happening is, Jackson. Are we going to be all right now, Brady? It would be a damn shame if we went through this like we did, and the problems hadn't gotten resolved. Teresa and I have done a lot more talking since this first happened. We learned a lot about who we could count on and who we really couldn't count on. I think we found out a lot more about the dangers of not appreciating what we already had and of risking all that to try to get what we thought we'd like to have. Now, we're both back to just appreciating again. When I showed up with Lenny early Tuesday morning, things were mostly back to how they had been before Brady and Teresa started making it known that they weren't happy with how the profits were being divided. As my business grew, I steadfastly refused to buy my wood from anyone other than Brady. Other loggers would approach me, but I always sent them to Brady's yard so he could buy their wood. Brady would turn right around and sell it to me, pocketing the difference in what he paid them and what I paid him. This was usually $5 or $6 a cord. Brady wouldn't buy inferior wood though. Whatever he bought, the quality was always first rate. He'd see to that. During the period of the middle 60s up until the early 70s, Brady and I made a lot of money in the wood business. We went in together, as equal partners, in several other ventures over the years. By 1981, the firewood business had shrunken down to where it wasn't really worthwhile bothering too much with it. By then though, Brady and I had moved on to mostly investing in different types of real estate. Brady still sells firewood, even though he's taken all his signs down. He still charges the same price he charged in 1960 for his wood. Last year, he sold 94 cords, a banner year for sales from the farm. He mostly sells to friends and neighbors. If someone comes by, having heard that Brady sells cheap firewood, he might sell to them, or he might tell them that he's already sold all the wood he has available. Usually, if he does decide to sell his wood to someone, it turns out that the lucky buyer is a working stiff who really needed to catch a break on the cost of heating up his living room. Brady started growing Christmas trees a few years ago. He gives them away to friends and family, but he makes everyone come over to the farm and cut down their own tree, just like he and I used to do most winters back when we were kids. I was motivated to write this story by what happened to us last week. Brady called me, early in the morning, just a week ago, to let me know that Teresa had passed away in her sleep. She was 67 years old when she passed. We had just learned she had cancer in her bones a short time before. She and Brady had known about it for much longer, but they didn't tell anyone until Terry got to the point where she couldn't hide either her pain or the great weight loss she'd had any longer. By this time, the cancer had spread into several of her internal organs. When you've known someone for more than 60 years and been as close to them as Terry and I were, their death tears away at some of what remains of your life. There were so many times and places where our lives had intersected. These weren't all happy times either, but that isn't how real life is. Teresa was an excellent, loving wife, a great mother, and a terrific sister. She was a very warm and loving grandmother, and a wonderful friend to many of us. She was all of this, and so many other positive things. I worry now, having read again the different ways I've portrayed her in some of my stories, that I wasn't fair to who she really was when describing her to my readers. I am uncomfortable, having only told a very few parts of her whole life story. I'm worried now that my readers might have formed a negative opinion of Teresa. Those of us who knew her, who loved her, all held her in the highest regard. In spite of all she went through, Terry did a lot of laughing in her lifetime, and she always did her best to comfort anyone who needed comforting. She loved only one man emotionally, and that was my cousin, Brady. I'm afraid to drive out to Brady's farm today, afraid of what I'll find when I get there. I called out to the farm yesterday, the day after Terry's funeral, and Brady didn't answer the phone. I know that if anything happened to Erica, it would be impossible for me to summon up the will necessary for me to try to carry on. Brady was much more dependent on Terry than I am on Erica. What if I drive out there and find out that Brady has chosen to join her in death? I have to go out there anyway. If he did do anything, he did it expecting that I'd be the first one out there to find him. This would be just like him, to do something that's stupid, too. Well, I've put it off as long as I could. Damn Brady. I've never had to do anything I've dreaded more. I should try to call out there one more time before I go traipsing off, as cold as it is outside right now. Hello. God damn it. Brady, why the hell didn't you answer your damn telephone yesterday? We've been worried sick here about you. I was over at little Brady's house, Jackson. They didn't want me staying by myself last night. You could have called me. Suppose I'd gotten in my car and driven over to your house last night. Jesus, Jackson. I really miss her. I didn't think I was going to feel this way. I knew it was coming, so I thought I was prepared for it. Sell the farm and come here and live with us. It would save me having to drive over there all the time. I'm not selling, and I'm not moving. Have you ever tried one of them electric blankets? Brady's got one in his guest bedroom. They're incredible things. He keeps his house pretty cold at night, you know? With these blankets, though, you feel like it isn't cold at all. You should get yourself some then. You've got the money for it, so why not? I don't have anything, Jackson. Teresa named Brady as the new trustee after her. He told me about it last night. Brady and Teresa had a family trust. All their assets were placed in the trust. I didn't know the value of everything in the trust, but I knew it was a hell of a lot of money. Millions of dollars at least. I was surprised. I hadn't thought much about their trust in years. I guess I'd just assumed that Brady would get control of everything after Terry died. What did Brady say he was going to do? The little shit didn't say. You know why she did it this way, don't you? She was worried that I'd go out and find me some young gold digger, marry her, and then she'd get everything after I croaked. Terry wouldn't think that. Besides, you wouldn't do something as stupid as that, would you? I might have, but now I don't even have that option available. What would you do with a young woman? From what Terry had been telling Erica, it sounded like you aren't really able to do that much anymore anyway. She said that? Well, it's a lie. It hurt her when we tried to do anything. I can still operate just fine. All the plumbing works. Can you believe she went ahead and took my money like that? Do you have anything set aside that wasn't in the trust? Did you see those two at the funeral? I saw them. They both looked pretty good too. Saw who? There were a lot of people there. Which two do you mean? Diane and Margaret. Did you see them? You saw Margaret Tracy? At Terry's funeral? Her and Diane TEARES. They were sitting together, way in the back of the church there, over on the left-hand side. They came to the cemetery too. I was watching for them, because I didn't get a very good look at them that time in the church. It was them all right. I didn't see them there. Of course, I was probably paying attention to what the priest was saying instead, and maybe remembering things about Teresa, your late wife, the woman we were all there to put to rest. You knew that it was Margaret that Diane came home from New York with, didn't you? Look here, Brady, I don't want to talk about stuff like that with you right now. I just called to make sure you were getting along all right. I was worried about you. Brady didn't say anything. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line though, so I knew he hadn't hung up. In a strange way, I felt relieved that he was already thinking of something else besides his dead wife. I was also a little bit disgusted with him. I had heard his enthusiasm when he had mentioned Margaret's name. He wasn't sounding very much like a bereaved husband, one who was ready to throw himself into his dead wife's grave. I never got all the way over her. Did you know that, Jackson? She looks pretty good too. She looks about 50, maybe 55, but no more than that. How old do you think I look, Jackson? I'm still in pretty good shape. Do you think I look around 60? May 57 or 58. This is pathetic, Brady. You look 70, at least. When you come out sometimes in the morning, without your upper and lower partials in, you look even older than that. Before you even start thinking about maybe making a run at Margaret, shouldn't you worry about your son controlling all your money? Don't you think Terry told him what to do if you start behaving foolishly? Brady's a good boy. He'll do whatever I tell him to. In the first place, he's in his 50s now, Brady. That isn't a boy. In the second place, you talking to me about Margaret like you are is scaring me. I'm pretty sure that Diane and Margaret are a couple. Do you know what I'm saying? Just do me one favor, Jackson, okay? I can't do anything now anyway, because I'm not over Teresa's dying yet, and it wouldn't look right to the kids if I did this myself. Call Margaret. Why don't you? And find out if she's maybe interested in seeing me again. Could you do that for me? Margaret Tracy always hated me. Brady, you know that. I would feel like I was being disloyal to Terry's memory if I were to help you with any part of this. Also, and this isn't important also, you aren't in any kind of shape right now to be thinking about things like this. When you are, you should ask Erica. She likes stuff like this, she finds it exciting. She'll help you, but not a week after your wife of more than 50 years has died. I don't know how much longer I've got left, Jackson. I don't want to waste whatever time I might have. I shouldn't be surprised by this, Brady, but I am. You should be ashamed of yourself. How can you even think about tomcatting around at a time like this? Who said anything about tomcatting? Seeing an old friend, someone you haven't seen for a very long time, that isn't tomcatting. There's a bit of curiosity I've been having about her too, ever since I recognized her at the funeral. Don't you think she came to that church just to get a look at me too? Why would she do that if she didn't still feel something for me? How would it hurt anything if you just asked her a few questions and found out for me if she might be interested? I told Brady I'd think about what he was asking. This wasn't how I'd mourn my wife, by trying to latch onto an old flame, but Brady and I had our differences about some things. I stood by my chair, thinking about how I might have reacted if, at Erica's funeral, I'd noticed Faye Watford, my first love, seated in the back of the church. I might have gotten lost in my reverie if Erica hadn't come looking for me, very much alive, and curious about the expression she saw on my face. She startled me so much that I blurted out everything I'd learned about Brady. Terry was right about him, Jackson. She was smart to set things up so that Brady is protected from his own base instincts. Brady has a right to use his own money any way he chooses. Teresa is dead, and their wedding vows have been satisfied. She shouldn't try to control his behavior from the grave. It isn't right. We should have our own trust, Jackson, for the taxes we'd save at least. What happens now when one of us dies? Winner take all. Survivor gets it. Suppose we both die at the same time. Then what? Ross gets it then. At least whatever's left after Uncle Sam steals as much as he can. What about my sisters? What about their kids? If I die first, then I guess they hit the jackpot when you die after. What difference does it make? We'll both be dead anyway. When your father died, he took pretty good care of all your sisters as I recall. They're all doing pretty well on their own. So is Ross. Come to that. I've got an idea. Why don't we just spend as much of it as we can before we die? Would you ever do what Brady's doing if I died first? I knew this was a loaded question. I decided to play it as a joke, hoping she'd just drop it. Hell no. Margaret Tracy and I never got along. Plus, she's over 3 years older than me. I think she's 69, just like Brady. I could see that Erica wasn't going to get sidetracked by my answer. You know what I meant. Don't even try to pretend that you didn't. If I died first, would you ever be interested in finding someone else? Time to put an end to this conversation before it gets out of hand. I'll give her the reassuring answer she wants. Put an end to this topic of conversation before it even gets going. Absolutely not. No way. A man should know when to quit. I've got no use for another woman in my life. You don't even have to think about that. Believe me. That should satisfy her. My answer was clear-cut, straightforward, and, for the most part, completely honest. Not even Faye Watford. How about if she called you like Brady wants you to call Margaret, maybe a week or so after I was dead? How did I know that Faye's name was going to come rolling off of her lips like that? Maybe it was because I knew, from long, painful experience, that Erica had an unerring habit of going straight for my jugular. The gloves had come off now. Erica had gotten to the meaty part of the bone. I had to be careful. Any equivocation was as good as me making an admission. Fantasy or reality. Erica didn't differentiate between the two. Not unless it was her fantasy and her reality. Then, she'd switch back and forth any way it suited her to. Maybe she's dead. She was a little older than me. I haven't heard anything from her in about 50 years. Brady hadn't heard from Margaret Tracy in that long either. What if Faye were to call you? I was nervous, but I was getting a little upset as well. We all had our secret thoughts. In spite of all her years of trying to probe the truth out of me, at least the truth that her fears had convinced her was there to be probed, Erica had never gotten me to admit anything about Faye, beyond what had happened in the short time when we were together. I'd told her all I was ever going to tell her. Whatever was left, if anything, was my memory to have, not hers. I'd ask her how things were, tell her about my life, and ask about hers. We'd talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'd hang up the phone, and we'd both go back to doing what we'd been doing for the last 50 years. It isn't going to happen. It isn't anything I'd want to happen. We aren't the same people as when we were kids. Do you ever regret not making love to her? Danger. Danger. This isn't a question a man should give an honest answer to. Not a wife either. Life is full of regrets, of opportunities forever gone. I'd made love to Faye at least 100 times in my thoughts, mostly for the purpose of ridding myself of whatever regret I might have felt about not actually doing so when she offered herself to me. For every time I'd thought about doing it with her, though, I'd had another time when I was happy that I'd resisted doing so. I knew that ratio wouldn't be enough for Erica, though. 100 to 1 wouldn't be enough of a ratio for her. I wouldn't trade one time that we've made love for 100 times with Faye. If I regret anything, it's not showing you how much I loved you enough to keep you from worrying about things like this. I promise you, after you die, I won't make love to any other woman. Okay, you wouldn't tell me that if you could still get it hard. I could take those pills, Cialis, Viagra, Levitra. You're the one who won't let me take one of them. Because you take those nitroglycerin tablets, Jackson. If you didn't need them for your angina, I'd let you take those other pills. I'm not willing to watch you die just so I can have a few more orgasms. Plus, I have those toys of mine I can use. You're getting quite a collection of those too. How come you have to name every one of them? I named the biggest one, Jackson. So, what are we going to do about this thing Brady wants me to do? We should call Margaret and invite her over for dinner. I can talk to her privately and see if she's even slightly interested in Brady. Do you think we should invite the other girl too? Diane. Sure, why not? Did I ever tell you Diane and I used to go on walks in the woods when we were kids? We were close back then. Brady dated both her and Margaret, actually. Maybe they'd get along well now. Isn't it odd that 2 of Brady's former girlfriends have become such good friends? What does that even say about Brady? I don't know. I think Diane might have always been more drawn to her own circle than into serious relationships with guys. Once, I noticed her paying more attention to another girl during a party than to anything else going on. Ross even mentioned she seemed a bit different afterward. Either way, I don't think it means much about Brady, other than the fact that he had relationships with both of them. If they've since moved in a different direction, that's their journey. I just don't understand how Brady can even think about anyone new right now. It's frustrating. I watched as Erica began to cry again. We'd both done more crying this week than we ever expected to. Every time Teresa came up, one of us would fall apart. I wished we could move past that part. I already told Brady I wouldn't make the call for him. You shouldn't. I'll do it. But not for Brady. I'm doing it for Teresa. She would want someone to look out for who he meets next. I can at least get a feel for whether they're genuine or just after something else. Brady doesn't have anything to offer in that way anymore, remember? His son controls the trust now. Did Brady really say he's doing fine physically? That's what he claims. I'd probably say the same if someone asked me, just to keep things simple. You never mentioned to Terry that I've had any issues, did you? If you did, she would have told Brady for sure. She'd never tell him something like that. Women aren't like that. If I did tell her anything about us, it was only because she asked me, because she was having problems with Brady. He's older than I am. If one of us was supposed to have problems, it should be him, not me. I made a mental note to visit my doctor and ask about one of those new prescriptions. I'd stopped using those nitro tablets 5 or 6 years ago, right after I first got them. Erica kept replacing them now and then, insisting that fresh ones were more effective, saying the old ones went stale like bread. It was easier to let her believe I was still taking them than to deal with her worrying if I told her I wasn't. I hadn't noticed any issues with my circulation, but I had started to feel like something just wasn't working right. Eventually, I got tired of the whole thing and gave up on trying to sort it out. Still, if Brady Blackwell's health was holding up better than mine, I wanted to be sure he didn't get the wrong impression from anything Teresa might have said before she passed. Those pills must be doing something, though the pharmaceutical companies were making a fortune off them. At $10 a dose, they better be. I'm keeping in close phone contact with Brady. I called him this morning to tell him it was too cold for me to drive over there today. I just called him again at 3 o'clock to let him know that tomorrow looked like it might be warmer. With wind and rain being forecast, I told him I doubted whether I'd get out to see him tomorrow either. Both times I spoke with him, he ended up asking me if I'd contacted Margaret Tracy yet. I've been putting him off. I'm hoping that Brady hasn't said anything to any of his children about Margaret being at the funeral. Erica has been out running errands since noon. When she gets back, I'm going to ask her to go see young Brady to find out what arrangements he's planning on making as far as Brady's future personal finances go. I don't want Brady to get his butt in the ringer in the event he proceeds with this ridiculous infatuation he seems to have for Margaret. I waited for Erica until 5:30, but when she hadn't gotten back by then, I opened a couple cans of chicken noodle soup and started heating them up. I had just gotten settled at the table with my soup and some peanut butter and saltine crackers when I heard her car pulling up in front of the house. I heard her laughing and talking with somebody, so I knew she'd brought company home with her. I was trying my best to polish off the last of my soup before Erica and her guest made it inside the house. I hate cold soup. I was finishing up the last of it when I saw Margaret Tracy walking in ahead of Erica. She had her head turned back towards Erica, who was continuing to talk about whatever was making the two of them laugh. I noticed that Erica quit talking, though, as soon as she saw me sitting at the kitchen table. She came over and set 2 of those net shopping bags on her side of the table before coming over to give my cheek a little peck. Jackson, I brought Margaret home so she could tell you herself what she and her friend Diane were doing at Teresa's funeral the other day. I could tell that Erica had been amused by Margaret's reason, whatever it was. From her reaction, I was guessing that meant that Margaret hadn't come to the funeral to check Brady out like he'd been hoping. Hi, Margaret. Long time no see. I had gotten to my feet, trying to pull the dish towel I'd been using as a bib out from the neck of my shirt. Hi yourself, Jackson. Your wife isn't anything like who I would have pictured you getting married to. She's been filling in all the blanks and bringing me up to date about you and Brady and the rest of your family. I knew a lot of it, but I hadn't heard about your sister, Joan, until today. I'm sorry, that was a long time ago. Her daughter, Diane, she's 42 years old now. When she was younger, she was the spitting image of her mother. She's living up by San Francisco. She teaches kids piano over in the East Bay area. Some inner-city program she and her husband founded and run together. They get these music appreciation grants from the state and federal governments. I don't know why she picked Oakland to do this in, but she's turned out some pretty talented young artists. Greg, her husband, has managed to get scholarships for some of them into various nationally known music conservatories. They have a young girl student of theirs studying at Juilliard right now. I was surprised when Erica told me that Brady recognized Dee and me at the funeral. No one usually does. We always try to go to any funerals when it is for someone that either of us knew. We went to the ones for both your parents, Jackson. The one for your father was the best funeral either of us have ever been to. So many people we knew were there, and that thing that you, Ross, and Brady did near the end, where you each got up and told some stories about your father, that was so moving. And it was really funny too. You don't expect to laugh very much when you're at a person's funeral, but almost all of the people there were laughing too. When Ross talked about your father, it was the funniest thing. Did the 3 of you rehearse any of that beforehand? We didn't rehearse it. We all agreed that we'd get up and say something, but that was it. If you thought the stuff at the funeral was funny, you should have come over to my house right after the funeral. We all got really tanked, and then that made us say some things we couldn't have said in the church. You said you went to my mother's funeral back in 1992? Hers, and Brady's mom's too. We missed Mr. Blackwell's, but neither of us had moved back here by then. There are so many people dying now. You didn't go to Frank Tierney's funeral. That was a sad one. He got run over and dragged by that Arco tanker truck over in Boston. I think it was in 03 or 04. He lasted about 3 weeks in the hospital, and then he died. Dee and I were both there, but there was only the minister and these 2 old men who worked at the cemetery. They were only there to lower the casket after the graveside service was over. We both thought there would be a lot more people there. Frank and I were never friends. I think I read somewhere that he had died, but I didn't look to see about any funeral. Did you go to Herbert Martin's in 2002? Brady and I were both at that one. I knew he had that son of his, but I'd only heard stories about him from Brady. I'd never seen him before or anything. I was there, but Dee wouldn't go. It was very unusual that she didn't want to go to a funeral, but she and Herbert had a little bit of a history together. Some bad feelings, I think. Herbert looked good in his casket. He looked a lot smarter than he ever did when he was alive. Was that his son that was touching himself and crying over by the vestibule? I didn't know he even had a kid. Is that why he was doing that? Is he retarded too? Brady says he's only a little slow, but he used to say that about Herbert too. The son has some kind of a sex problem. That's all I know. He has been arrested for indecent exposure and for lewd conduct more than just a few times. I think he liked showing people his wiener whenever he got either excited or emotional. After his grandfather died, old Mr. Martin, they put him in one of those sanitarium places. The old man bought one of those perpetual care annuities for him. I guess they let him out to attend his father's funeral. Does Brady really think I came to the funeral because I wanted to get things started with him again? I don't know if he thinks that or not. I believe that might be part of the reason why he wanted Erica and me to ask you about you being at Terry's funeral. Seeing you both there surprised him. He's been having a hard time of it ever since Teresa got really sick near the end. Right now, I'm not sure he's thinking straight, so I have no idea what he's thinking. We didn't mean any disrespect by going. Like I said, we go to any funeral if it was someone we might have known. I guess you could call it a hobby we both have. We don't usually say anything to anyone. Nobody even recognizes us most times. We just go and listen to the service, then we look around to see who's there. Teresa had a nice service. Her family looks very nice. I did talk to Annie, back when your mom died. She seemed so sad. So did you and Ross. I should have asked Annie about Joan then, but I didn't really know Joan as well as I knew Annie. I don't think we'll tell Brady right away that this was just your hobby. We've been worried about him since Terry died. He's kind of been a little fixated on you and Diane since the funeral. Maybe that's his best way of trying to cope. I don't suppose you'd have any interest in coming over for dinner sometime when we've invited Brady too. It feels so strange to hear you asking me this question, Jackson. Brady and I, we really didn't part on the very best of terms. Dee might say yes if you were to ask her. She still believes all that mystical crap she believed when she was a young girl. She is very submissive. You knew that, right? I'm not sure if I know it now. I remember she used to have this thing she said about different people controlling her. I can't remember too much except for the fact I always thought it was crap and she used that for an excuse for the things she really wanted to do, but would have been ashamed to do them on her own. There might be a tiny bit of that involved in it, but I can assure you that she has a very submissive nature. I can get her to do almost anything I want her to. She enjoys being led to do things. She's uncomfortable without firm guidance from someone outside herself. You better keep her away from Brady then. Now that Teresa's dead, Brady might appreciate having someone he can control. He was unable to do much of that with Terry. Your wife told me almost the exact same thing. Almost word for word, in fact. Would you believe that there is a part of me that is drawn to testing that possibility out? I have my own small streak of submissiveness too. Sometimes, it's difficult to get some of my own needs met because I always have to tend to Diane's demands. I would enjoy an occasional change from being in charge all the time, but, with Dee, my enjoying something like that isn't really a possibility. Brady always had that unfortunate tendency of needing total control and total ownership of me. I wouldn't care to have to suffer through that again. Not for myself, and not for Diane either. He was surprised at how youthful you look. Impressed might be a better word. I've known Brady all my life, and I'd have to say I never saw him try to do with anyone else what he did with you when you guys were together. I mean all the fights, and not letting any other guys near you. You were the only one he ever did that to. It has been a long time. When I was a girl, I was way too impressed with myself, and with the power that having the appearance I did and me being with Brady was giving me. I wasn't a very nice person. I'm still not very nice, when you come down to it. But now I make an effort not to be the same kind of bitch that I once was. So, what should I tell Brady when he asks me about you again? If he asks, tell him I'm sorry for his recent loss. Tell him I'm sorry too, for the way I used to treat Teresa, and for all things I did back when I was young. Should I tell him that you and Diane have no interest in getting together with the rest of us and having dinner together? It does raise such interesting and delicious possibilities. Before you say anything to him, let me take the opportunity of first discussing this with Diane. She'd be so nervous if we really did arrange such a meeting. My most serious misgiving would be about us giving any appearance that we wanted to lead Brady on in any way. We'd only be agreeing to coming here for a dinner party with you and Erica. A party where we already knew that Brady would be an additional invitee. If we could all agree on it only being that, having a dinner party might be possible. A few old friends deciding to get together for a pleasant evening of conversation. After Margaret said that, Erica spirited her away on the pretext of wanting to give her a tour of our home. I think she was afraid I might say something to cause Margaret to change her mind about coming over with Diane for a dinner when Brady was going to be here too. Erica really loved this kind of intrigue. Now that Erica had started things in motion, I was perfectly content to move away from all of it. If it turned out to be a big mistake, I couldn't be blamed for any of it. I was also aware that Erica would be pumping Margaret for as much information as she could get. Erica had always had this ability to get people to tell her far more information than they thought they were giving. She was an excellent judge of people. I'd learned not to doubt some of her most outrageous and outlandish conclusions. It was after 8 before Erica and Margaret again reappeared. Erica walked her out to her car to see her safely off, and then came back inside. Jackson, please don't say anything to either Diane or Margaret about all Brady's money being tied up in that trust. You think they're out to get his money? No, not yet they aren't. I did find out that Diane and Margaret are both feeling something of a financial pinch. I let slip a few of the details about how well you, Brady, and Ross have done with some of your investments. Both of them have seen Ross and Sandy's house. I mentioned to her that you and Brady have done at least as well as Ross has. I also made mention of the fact that Brady and Teresa were better off than either you or Ross. Just don't say anything about the trust or about who now controls all that money. Why do you want to encourage this? You heard her yourself. Neither of them are interested in Brady. They just like attending funerals. We also shouldn't encourage Brady. If he thinks they might be interested, he'll probably do something foolish, ending up hurting all his kids' feelings. You know how they'd all feel if Brady started chasing around so soon after their mother died. We talked for a long time. Too long. By the end of our little talk, I was more convinced than ever that this was all going to turn out badly for us, especially for Brady. Unfortunately, I was also convinced that Erica was going to grease things along in order to see that things did happen. Twice, while we were talking, Erica mentioned that Brady needed something to take his mind off of Terry's death. I think Erica felt like she needed something to take her mind off of that as well. She and Terry had been very close, closer than most sisters. I'm starting to wonder if she and Teresa might not have discussed something like this happening after she was gone. I couldn't see Teresa wanting Brady to go looking for someone new so soon after her death though. All the Italian people I'd ever met were pretty big into the whole mourning process. Some Italian widows and widowers would dress all in black for 30 or more years after their spouses died. For the Irish, like my family, 1 year was the very shortest period of mourning anyone considered decent. Anything else was a huge insult to the departed spouse and to his or her family. I called Brady again at 9 o'clock. I wanted to tell him that I've changed my mind about driving over tomorrow. Brady never stays up very late, not unless he's been drinking. I let the phone ring 7 or 8 times before giving up. I wasn't sure what I'd tell him about Margaret. Erica wants me to tell him that both girls were going to be coming to dinner at our place and to ask him if he'd like to be included in our plans. I think Erica wants to play with fire. I can easily see this getting out of control. Real easily. In fact, it is almost bound to get out of control. Erica never saw Brady when he and Margaret had their on-again, off-again relationship. She has never even seen the most vicious side of Brady. Maybe she saw a little bit of it that time we had the fight over at the El Bolero, but Brady hadn't even been mad then. Not like he used to get if anyone else even looked at Margaret. I have known it. I've seen and felt it. That is certainly one part of my childhood that I'd have absolutely no wish to relive. I wish she had known Brady then. She might not be so anxious to get any part of that going again. I got over to Brady's a little before 7 the next morning. It was cold and sprinkling, but all the weather reports were forecasting a big storm coming through later in the day. There was going to be some snow, maybe even quite a few inches of it. When I got up to get dressed and come over to check on Brady, Erica told me to try to talk Brady into coming over to spend a few days with us. I knew that probably wasn't going to happen. Brady liked sleeping in his own bed at night. I told Erica not to hold her breath while she was waiting for Brady to accept our invitation. I called Margaret last night. She said that she and Diane are free to come over for dinner Thursday night. I told her Brady would probably be here too. Tell Brady that when you invite him. If I tell him that, he'll just tell me that he'll drive over Thursday for dinner. Tell him he isn't invited on Thursday, but it would be different if he were already our house guest. I'm not going to horse him around like that. Brady's always welcome to come to my house for supper. I knew you'd be like that, Jackson. You ask me for my help, and then, when I try to give it, you insist on doing things your own way. I told Margaret I'd call her back when I knew for sure if Thursday would be a good day or not. If you want to do it your own way with Brady, you can just figure out how to get Margaret and Diane together with Brady on your own. I wasn't worried about getting them together. That was you and Brady. Hell, to be honest, I'd prefer to keep Brady away from both of them. I've got a bad feeling about this. You don't know everything that might happen if Margaret and Brady were to take up where they left off over 50 years ago. Just remember what I said, dear. Tell Brady he has to come over here and spend a few nights if he wants me to invite Margaret and Diane to dinner. I knew she was sending me a message too. Erica has always been like that. You ask her for an opinion about something, and the next thing you know, she's out in front, trying to take over everything. I hope she didn't think it was any news to me that people had to pay her asking price in order to get her cooperation. Fortunately for me, I didn't really want Brady and Margaret to get together again. I could afford to not jump through any of her hoops. Brady already had a pot of fresh coffee on the stove. Erica and I used one of those electric Mr. Coffee things, but Brady cooked his up on the stovetop burner. He still added some eggshells to his coffee grounds, just like my parents and his used to add them to theirs. I had no idea why they had ever done that, but the coffee tasted fine. I guess some habits are hard to break. Erica wants you to come over to our house and stay for a few nights. She's worried about you getting enough good food to eat. I need to stay here. I don't need any fancy food to get by on. I like a good breakfast in the morning, which I'm perfectly capable of making myself, and then I just heat up some of that frozen stuff you can buy over at the market. Put it in the oven for 35 minutes, and it's ready to eat. Tastes good, and it's easy to clean up after yourself too. Erica has gotten in touch with Margaret and Diane. I think she mentioned something about maybe inviting them over for supper one of the nights when you're visiting. Really? Isn't that something? Did you find out why they came to Teresa's funeral? They go to most of the funerals for people they knew. They went to your mom's funeral. They went to my mother's, and to my father's too. They apparently go to quite a few funerals. Margaret said she went to Herbert Martin's funeral. She even went to Frank Tierney's funeral. Frank died? When? I don't remember anyone telling me he was even sick. He got run over by one of those Arco tanker trucks up in Boston a few years back. He got dragged underneath for a long ways after too. Margaret said he was in the hospital for a few weeks before he died. Not a way I'd pick for myself to kick the bucket. I bet somebody made some nice money in a lawsuit after that though. Getting run over by a tanker truck from a big oil company like that, somebody must have gotten a nice settlement. Only thing better would be if you got run over by one of them Kennedys when they were all liquored up. Be even better if they did one of those hit and run things, but somebody went and got their license number. Boston jury might not give that big of an award against one of the Kennedys though. Arco is probably better. Did you ask Margaret if she wanted to see me? No. She did say she was sorry for what happened to Terry, and that she felt real bad about the way she always had treated her though. Said to tell you she was sorry for a lot of the things she did back when she was a kid. She looks good though, don't you think? She looks good for a 70-year-old woman, but she doesn't look like any 55-year-old to me. She isn't 70, damn it. We're both in our 60s. Sorry, Brady. I forgot you still have a few months to go before you hit 70. Last time I checked though, Margaret was the same age as you. Compared to you though, she does look somewhat younger. Why didn't you ask her when you had the chance? I told you I was wondering. I'm trying to stay all the way out of this one, Brady. Erica said she'd set up a dinner party for when you come over to stay at our place for a few nights. Don't need to spend any nights, just to get some supper. Tell her to set it up, and let me know which night it is. I'll be there. Phone is right over there. And I'm sure you still remember our number? Call her yourself. I said I'm not going to be a party to any of this. You and Erica are the ones that seem hell-bent on doing this. I'll just stand on the sidelines and watch to see how it all turns out for you. Brady groused a lot about what I said, but I also noticed he wasn't reaching for the telephone to call Erica. He and I played a few games of cribbage to pass the time. Right before lunch, we went out in the rain and helped one of his neighbors load up a couple of cords of wood Brady had set aside for him. Poor guy was out of firewood and couldn't wait for better weather to come over to load it up. Brady said he worked over at the casino and that both he and his wife had an addiction to the slot machines. I noticed the man telling Brady that he'd be over to pay him for the wood real soon. Brady told him it didn't matter too much and just to pay him when he had it to spare. I see you're turning into one of them philanthropists now, Brady. I guess you can afford it though. Don't you worry none about Eddie. He'll be over here in a week, 2 at the outside, with my money. His father was the same way, except with him it was whiskey instead of gambling. Whiskey killed his dad. I don't suppose the gambling is as dangerous for Eddie as the hooch was for his father. I wanted to let you know that I have plenty of extra dough in case little Brady puts you on too tight of a budget. Brady just laughed and shook his head from side to side. I think I've got enough on my own to last me. The kids might think they have everything, but they don't. Not by a long ways. I made up my own trust about 2 years after Teresa used me for target practice that time. Just in case. A lot of the time it was just easier to put a little land deal together using my own money. If my mother needed anything, because she didn't always get along with Teresa, she'd come to me, and I'd take care of it, without the need for Teresa to be getting all worked up about it. Comes in handy, having your own source of money. I figured you might have something like that, but I just wanted to make sure, in case you didn't. Tell me about this problem that Erica talked to Teresa about. Your pecker just up and quit working. That's always the problem with women sharing things with other women. No woman will ever keep a man's secrets. They'll keep their own, but never a man's. It's not really that serious. One of my valves must have sprung a leak or something. It still works, just can't hold pressure where it's needed for too long. Those little blue pills don't work for you? I haven't tried them. Like I said, I think I need to get a new seal put in or something. It still functions, but it's becoming more trouble than it's worth. That's nonsense, Jackson. It was all that smoking you used to do. It clogs up arteries, and it also affects the smaller vessels that feed into the system. Are you admitting that it affected you too? I seem to remember that the first Camel I ever smoked was one I borrowed from you. Refresh my memory again. Brady, who was it that asked me for all my leftover cigarettes back when I quit trying to get back into shape? That would be me, Jackson. Cigarettes don't have the same effect on people who actually get outdoors and do some honest work once in a while. I've already told you everything I have still works. The only issue I've ever had was with my teeth. You're telling me you don't have any problems functioning properly, right? None at all. If anything, my problem is managing to calm down again. It can get pretty embarrassing too. You know what? I think you're full of shit. If it does work, I'd be willing to bet big bucks that it only works when you take a bunch of those damn ED pills. I never said I didn't. Not a bunch though, just one. Not all the time either, just when I'm feeling a little bit sluggish. A man my age isn't afraid to take advantage of a medical breakthrough. I own a bunch of stock in Pfizer's anyway. Part of what I spend comes right back to me in dividends. Medicare and my Part B coverage pays most of it for me anyway. Of course, when I was only your age, I didn't need to take anything. This is only recently that I've even looked into Viagra. You should try it. Can't hurt. I thought you said Terry couldn't, because it hurt her too much? Jackson, there are some things a man needs to keep private. You're stepping way over the line here. Let's drop it, okay? Screw you, Brady. This is exactly why I didn't want to let myself get involved in this thing of yours with Margaret. I just knew it was going to get you started up again with being the same way you used to be. I don't want to go back to how it was then. If you want to let your tools start leading you around again, you can do it all by yourself. What is this you're going on about? I never let my pecker do my thinking for me. Never. Margaret has nothing to do with this anyway. You're just jealous that I'm older than you, and I still have my keen interest in women. Have it your way, Brady. I still don't want any part of helping the two of you get together. Not now. So soon after Terry and all. I kept him company for another hour, helping him separate some of Terry's things for the Goodwill and some for the trash bin. I could tell Brady was bothered by having to take care of something like that. After about an hour of it, he just left off what we were doing and grabbed his coat and went out for a short walk by himself. I kept working for about another 30 minutes until he came back inside. It was clear how cold it was outside. Some of the moisture from his tears had started to freeze on his rosy red cheeks. As soon as he came in, he poured himself a generous glass of 4 roses. I had a small one too, just to keep him company. You better get going. The snow is going to start sticking soon. Tell Erica I'm free almost any night for supper. I'll have her call over here. You can tell her that yourself. I'm glad you have your own dough, Brady. I don't think the kids are going to be happy if you follow through with this. Jackson, I have kids, grandkids, and soon I'll have a great-grandkid. I've put in my time. I have a right to live some kind of life for myself now. If any of them don't like it, that's just too bad. Same goes for you. I don't go around judging everything you do or offering you advice. I already knew you didn't like Margaret. It doesn't matter. I'm not concerned with her for you. I'm thinking about what's best for me. What difference could any of this possibly make to Teresa? Do you think she even knows or cares what happens to me now? She might not, but the rest of your family sure does. The best way to avoid trouble is to stop it before it even starts. You can quit this before it goes any further. That's another thing. More than anything else, I'm just so tired of always trying to prevent trouble. I'm not afraid of a little conflict. So what if some feelings get hurt? Remember your old man? Remember my mother? They stayed out of trouble, and look how miserable they were after Aunt Catherine and my father died. Just before my mother passed, you know what she told me? She said it was better to look out for yourself, to do what you want. She drank too much because she felt so alone after my dad died. Speaking of him, Do you think he should have been out in the heat carrying a heavy mail bag every day with his blood pressure? He could have had an inside job, sorting mail or working the counter. But he didn't ask. He didn't want to make waves or cause anyone trouble. He was 55 when he passed. What kind of life was that? People have been looking after you your whole life, Brady. After both of us, that's what I should have said. Even when it was us looking out for other people, we still had people looking out for and worrying about us. When it comes to being selfish, I don't think either of us missed the boat in that regard. We've done pretty much whatever we wanted to. If you think you've been held back somehow, and this is now your time to be selfish, then I guess I really don't know what to tell you. You don't need to tell me anything. That's what I've been trying to get across to you. This is my life we're talking about, and I'm going to do what I want. Period. End of discussion. I knew he really meant it too. Brady wasn't easy to reason with, even in the best of times. Now, with Teresa dead, there wasn't anyone left who could talk him out of pushing ahead with whatever he decided he wanted to do. I'd taken my shot at it, but my heart hadn't really been in it. He was right about having put in his time, as far as providing for his family went. What the hell difference did it make to me if he decided he wanted to go off the deep end and kick up his heels a little? I could have Erica spend some time with Brady's kids. Let them know this was how Brady had chosen to deal with the loss of Teresa. They were a good bunch. They'd understand that Brady wasn't going to do anything the easy way. He never did. For me, the problem was that I really couldn't go along with what Brady was hoping and angling for. I think he already could tell that I wasn't going to just let things go. I guess this is where we part company then, Brady. I understand what you're saying. I just can't bring myself to believe that you have the right to go ahead and do whatever you choose to do, no matter who it might hurt. Not if the only reason you can give me is that it would make you feel better. You could afford to wait for a year before you start running around and embarrassing yourself. You don't need to shame Terry's memory like you're planning on doing. You better get out of my house now, Jackson. I've had just about enough of your holier-than-thou preaching to me. If our positions were reversed, I wouldn't lay this kind of shit on you. Go on, get out of here. Don't bother calling me or coming over here anymore either. I'm done with you too. I left then. I got in my car and I didn't look back. I knew I'd regret this conversation for a long time. Probably for as long as the two of us lived. If Brady died first, I'd regret it even longer. Someone had to tell him that what he was planning was clearly wrong. I was the only one left who was close enough to him to do it. By the time I got back home, it was really snowing hard. I was happy to pull up in my own driveway. When I got out of the car and hurried over to the front door, it was opened by Erica, and I just hurried through, so she could close it before letting out all the heat. She took one look at my face and started right in on me. Brady's not going to be coming over, is he? Probably not. Was it bad? Pretty bad. We went through some of Terry's clothes, sorting out what to send to the thrift store and deciding on what could just be thrown away. Brady did it with me for a while, then he needed to take one of his walks around the farm. When he got back, we had an argument, a pretty bad one, about what he wants to do. Brady thinks he can do whatever he wants to now. He says he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. He told me this was his time now. Jackson, you can't tell someone like Brady what to do. You should know that by now. You two are just alike. He'll think about things, and then, after he does, he'll decide to stay right there on his farm, doing the same things he's always done. He just doesn't like to be told that he has to do it. He won't stay mad at you forever. You'll see. If you say so. Don't hold your breath, though. I know Brady. It has turned out that Erica and I were both partially right. Brady has stayed put on his farm. Little Brady has stayed in touch with Erica, and he keeps her up to date on what Brady's been up to. It has already been almost 8 months now since Teresa died. We had Diane and Margaret over for dinner a few times, just the two of them with Erica and me. We always talk about Brady. Erica has told Margaret that Brady is still in mourning. Margaret doesn't seem to be in any hurry to see Brady anyway. I know that Erica has lent Margaret and Diane some money, enough to get them through whatever small problem they were having. I didn't ask her about it when I got our bank statement. It wasn't enough for us to have a fight over. I've been going over to Ross's house a lot more than I used to. The two of us have been going out looking at some properties. It seems to me like all the prices are too high to remain where they are. I keep waiting for a big correction to occur. While I'm waiting for that to happen, Ross and I have started making some good profits by loaning out money and taking back first mortgages on some of the undeveloped land in areas where we're interested in investing. Our policy is not to lend more than about 25% of the current market value. Even then, I can't say I feel that secure about our exposure. Ross is hoping we get some of this land when the owners default on their notes. I'm hoping everyone keeps paying us the interest we've been charging them. Ross keeps in fairly close contact with Brady. We have a deal in place, though. He doesn't talk to Brady about me, and he doesn't talk to me about Brady. It works out fine, because he tells Sandy about Brady, and then Sandy tells Erica. Erica makes sure I know anything she thinks I need to. I'm fairly certain that Erica has recently started calling Brady. Probably at least 2 or 3 times a week, when I'm over at Ross's, or if I'm out at some doctor's office. I'm guessing that she mentions whatever I'm doing, although I'm just as sure that Brady doesn't ask her anything about me. This is the longest I've gone without seeing Brady since. Well, since probably as long as I've been alive. I still have conversations with him, but now I make up the responses that he'd probably give me. In my head, these conversations don't sound much different from the real ones. Maybe a little less swearing, but other than that, not too different. I'm guessing that Brady is still thinking of things he'd like to be saying to me too. At supper tonight, Erica asked me if I was planning on calling Brady when the year is up. I told her I wasn't. Brady told me not to come over and not to call him anymore. I told her that too. Then I told her I hadn't said anything like that to Brady, so he was free to call or come over anytime he wanted to. I won't tell you what she said to me after, but it wasn't very complimentary. I think she believes everything will blow over as soon as Teresa has been dead for 1 year. That isn't what I think though. Erica was right when she said he and I were a lot alike. Well, now it's been a whole year. A year and 2 weeks actually, since Teresa died. Just like I figured, Brady's being just as stubborn as he always was. I'm not surprised. I'm not a bit surprised. Someday Brady is going to admit he's glad he didn't do anything to reflect badly on his late wife's memory. He'll have to admit it to himself though, because I sure won't be around to listen to him. I guess Brady was right about cigarettes being worse if you weren't out in the woods or out on your farm chopping down trees. My lungs are both riddled with all these tumors that keep popping up whenever they take a new picture with those machines of theirs. I made Ross and Erica both promise me they wouldn't tell him about any of this until they call him to let him know I'm gone. Won't be long now. Goodbye, Erica. Goodbye, Ross. Goodbye, Brady. I love all of you. Brady stood up at the casket, the notes he'd written shaking in his hand. He looked out at all the people in the church. He waited for 5 minutes, trying to get himself back under control. He wasn't succeeding. Ross stood up and went over to him, putting his arm around Brady's convulsing shoulders, and led him back to the seat right next to Erica. When Brady was sitting down, Ross went to stand next to his brother's casket. There's a lot I could say about my brother, Jackson. I could tell you about all the times he stood by me, and how I always knew I could count on him. A lot of people here in the church could tell stories like that. Jackson loved his wife, he loved his family. He could be testy with you though, no matter how much he loved you. No one could get along with him all the time. He wouldn't allow it. He didn't love anybody better than he loved Brady. But even there, those two had their moments. Jackson always knew how he wanted things to be, and he wasn't shy about telling people about it either. He might not have been right every time, but he was always sure about what he wanted. I guess, other than Erica, I was with him more near the end than anyone else. It was my turn to be with him at the hospital, right at the end. Erica was getting something to eat after being in with him all that morning. Jackson hadn't really been conscious since the night before, but his heart kept beating somehow. Nobody knew he would last so long. The doctors, they were all amazed that he hung in there for so long. I was sitting there, just keeping him company, thinking about how it was going to be without him in my life. Then, Brady walks into Jackson's room. He doesn't say anything. He just stands there at the foot of Jackson's bed, looking at him, with all those things they kept on him to monitor everything. I was going to say something to Jackson, something to let him know that Brady had come to see him. But, before I could say anything, Jackson opened his eyes, all on his own. Then he gives Brady one of those little grins of his, and says, "Hi, Brady. I knew you would come." He closed his eyes again right after, and you just knew he'd used up the last little bit of his energy to even tell Brady hi. About 5 minutes later, Erica comes back, and I'm telling her about how Jackson woke up and saw Brady, and what he said. So, I'm telling her, and then Jackson wakes up again. He looks at all three of us, and he says, "Goodbye, Erica. Goodbye, Ross. Goodbye, Brady. I love all of you." After that, he just died. I'm sure he heard all of us tell him that we loved him too. I sure hope he already knew that, but we all said it anyway. The reason why this is so amazing is because of how long Jackson managed to hang on. All of us knew that Jackson didn't want to die, leaving this last thing undone between him and Brady. Erica called Brady early that morning and told him to please come to the hospital because Jackson was suffering so much, and he was too stubborn to let go until this thing with him and Brady got finished. Jackson and Brady were both pretty stubborn, but in the end, Jackson showed all of us who was the most stubborn. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.